Taiyo is a loser orphan whose family was isekai'd by Truck-kun. His lonely life takes a turn when he accidentally risks his childhood friend. However, when he discovers she was part of a spy's bloodline, he's forced to marry and clap her, or he will be sent with his parents for knowing too much. On the day of his family funeral, Taiyo was devastated for losing his parents and brother in a car accident. As he cries, he hates himself for being the only one to survive. However, his only friend Mutsumi shows up and she comforts him by promising to stay with him forever. A month later, Taiyo was in class, and his family's death still made him so depressed that he rejected offers to hang out with his classmates. In contrast to this, Mutsumi's friendly nature and great looks made her the most popular girl in class, and every guy secretly crushes on her. She forced her loner bestie Taiyo into having lunch with her in class, and she advised him to move on from that tragedy in order to build communication skills. Mutsumi then starts trying to romantically shovel food into his mouth, but they're suddenly interrupted by the vice principal, Kyoichiro. Kyoichiro starts simping for Mutsumi, but she rejects his weird offers before telling him to head back to the principal's office. As he left, he told Taiyo to come to his office after school, leaving Taiyo baffled by this sudden request. After school, Taiyo arrived at the principal's office, where Kyoichiro sat uncomfortably close to him and showed him his special collection of secret photos he took of Mutsumi.
Brother,
Kyoichiro then revealed that he'd been watching Mutsumi from the shadows since she was born, and he also told him about how he tortured the last guy who tried to get together with Mutsumi until he swore to never go near her again. Kyoichiro then pulled a knife on Taiyo, causing him to shiver in fear, and brought up how close Taiyo was getting to Mutsumi before revealing that Mutsumi was his little sister. Just then, a loli named Futaba made a surprise appearance and threw a flashbang which allowed her to escape the room with Taiyo. When Taiyo woke up several hours later, he was stunned when he saw Mutsumi standing beside a bunch of weird-looking people, and when he asked who they were, Mutsumi revealed that they were her siblings. She introduced her siblings, which included Futaba, Shinzo, Shion, Kengo, and Nanao, before showing him their guard dog named Goliath. Afterwards, she revealed that they were a family of spies, causing Taiyo to lose his mind. Kengo then told Taiyo about how Kyoichiro was the Gojo Satoru of all spies because he was unrivaled in their family when it came to spy skills. And when Taiyo asked why he targeted him, Futaba said it was because they got a tip that someone was trying to unalive Mutsumi. She then revealed that Kyoichiro's obsession with protecting Mutsumi was born from his failure to save her during an accident some time ago. She also explained that Kyoichiro had always hated Taiyo, but didn't try to unalive him because he was Mutsumi's bestie. But that all changed when they got a tip from social media that assassins were targeting Mutsumi because of a bounty on her head, which now gave Kyoichiro a reason to suspect Taiyo. Just then, an alarm started going off in the house, and Futaba said it was because Kyoichiro had come by to finish Taiyo off. Shion and Shinzo remotely activated all the traps in the building to stop him, but Futaba said the only way to stop Kyoichiro was for Taiyo and Mutsumi to get married. She explained that his life would be protected if he did so, because Yozakura family members weren't allowed to unalive each other, but Mutsumi refused the offer. She explained to Futaba that telling Taiyo to join their family would be cruel since he was still trying to get over the loss of his own family, causing Futaba to apologize for being insensitive. The spy family then started cheerfully making plans to fight off Kyoichiro, and she added that even if their entire family tried to fight him, they still had a low chance of winning. Just then, he interrupted them by making a shocking appearance in their living room. Futaba warned him to stay away from Taiyo and Mutsumi, but he refused, so she spun him like a helicopter before smashing him into a chair. Nano and Shinzo followed up with big attacks of their own, but Kyoichiro easily blocked them using some special threads which he then used to knock them out. Kyoichiro then threatened to rip the house to shreds if they didn't hand over Mutsumi and Taiyo, so Futaba told Mutsumi to run away with Taiyo while the rest of them faces off against him. Futaba charged at Kyoichiro using her wind abilities, but he folded her in seconds with his special threads. Afterwards, Shion activated some drones that started blasting Kyoichiro while Mutsumi and Kengo locked Taiyo in a safe room somewhere in the building. After destroying Shion and her drones, Kyoichiro met Mutsumi, who was standing beside Taiyo, and she immediately tried to attack him, but it only took seconds for him to tie her up. Kyoichiro took off the disguise on Mutsumi's face to reveal that it was actually Kengo, and then he asked Mutsumi where the real Taiyo was. After taking off the disguise, she pointed a knife at him and tried to sway him using Talk no Jutsu, but the weirdo John Wick said he'd only agree to free Taiyo on the condition that she never leaves the house again, and become a shut-in damsel under his watch who has no access to the internet, friends, or even love. He then stabbed himself using the knife she was holding while telling her to forget about Taiyo, and as Mutsumi trembled in fear, she considered accepting the offer, but Taiyo made a heroic appearance and told Mutsumi that he was ready to get married to her in order to keep both of them safe, causing her to throw a special family ring at him. In an attempt to stop them, Kyoichiro wrapped Taiyo's hand up with special threads, but Taiyo fought through the pain and grabbed the ring. After tearing through the threads, he wore the ring and boldly declared to Kyoichiro that he'd be the one to protect Mutsumi from that point on, causing her to embrace him passionately. While everyone celebrated, Futaba told Kyoichiro that he needed to teach Taiyo what protecting Mutsumi really meant. When Taiyo woke up the next morning, he was stunned by the sight of Kyoichiro, who immediately tried to end him with a dagger. Taiyo dodged his attack and asked what he was doing in his place, which a blade, to which he replied that he was following the Yozakura family's traditional wake-up call. However, Taiyo argued that he was trying to unalive him, but Yoshiro claimed he was only training him because as a spy, Taiyo needed to learn how to keep a keen eye while he slept. Kyoichiro then said it was time for Yozakura family traditional morning exercises and wrapped him in threads. Mutsume was making breakfast at the time, and when she heard the commotion, she rushed to the room and was stunned by the sight of Kyoichiro using Taiyo as his own personal Muppet. When she saw how painful it was for Taiyo, she called out Kyoichiro's name with a threatening stare that made him quit the nonsense. He eventually realized they were running late for school, so he grabbed onto both of them as well as their school supplies and leapt off the window of the building. Just then, the building exploded, and when Taiyo asked about it, Kyoichiro said their house was rigged with an explosive, and said he'd put his feud with Taiyo on hold before offering to explain what the Yozakura family's mission was. He said the most important mission of all was to protect Mutsumi, and told them to move along with him because it would get chaotic soon. Afterwards, they were riding to school in a limo when Kyoichiro told Mutsumi and Taiyo that Shinzo revealed that he found fragments of a time bomb in the kitchen of their house. When Taiyo asked why a bomb was planted in their house, Kyoichiro said it was targeted at Mutsumi, and revealed that Taiyo's relationship with Mutsumi had now become hot news, since he'd gotten a ton of congratulatory messages for them. Kyoichiro then revealed that the reason Mutsumi was being targeted was because she was the 10th head of the Yozakura family. He revealed that the Yozakura family's lineage could be traced back to the ninjas of the Edo period, and it's produced generations of descendants with superhuman abilities. Among them, an ordinary person known as a head has always been born. And even though the head has no supernatural powers like the other members, her offspring are usually raised as typical Yozakura superhumans, who could inherit the unbelievable talents of the Yozakura genes. The family members with talent protect the head who pass down these talents, which is how the Yozakura family had always thrived. Kyoichiro also stated that Mutsumi would be targeted from all angles by all their enemies, and just then, a random group of assassins started attacking them. They fired a bunch of bullets at their limo, and when Taiyo started cowering, Kyoichiro told him to calm down because their car was bulletproof. Using the snap of a finger, Kyoichiro signaled the limo driver to move at a much higher speed, causing the assassins to switch to an even bigger gun which they used in blasting them severally. After evading the assassin's shots, Mutsumi told Taiyo that they'd be fine because Goliath was a more awesome driver than Dominic Toretto.
What the dog doing?
And Goliath proved her words to be true, as he dodged a missile launched directly at them. When things got even more messy, Kyoichiro decided to take matters into his own hands as he went to the roof of the car and destroyed eventually weapon which the assassins fired at him before destroying them as well as their vehicle using his threads. Afterwards, Kyoichiro handed Taiyo a gun and told him that his first mission was to protect Mutsumi from all the assassins that attacks all day. When they arrived at school, Taiyo acted weirdly aggressive towards his friends, and he remembered how Kyoichiro told him to protect Mutsumi from a skilled bomber named Tamaya. Back then, Kyoichiro revealed that Tamaya used to be an ally of theirs that changed sides and also informed him that Tamaya's weakness was that he was addicted to social media. He added that Tamaya made 3 bombs, and after using on Taiyo's home, he still had 2 more bombs which he aimed to use against them. Back at school, Taiyo was doing some investigation, and he eventually saw a text which informed him that the second bomb was in place. As he lost his cool, a flying ball hit him square in the head, and as he tried to regain composure, he saw a mysterious shadowy figure moving around the school halls which he immediately rushed to investigate. Just then, he was approached by the school nurse who told that everything was okay, but as he left, she smiled at him in a sus way. A while later, Taiyo was watching Mutsumi when he was handed a chocolate by his friends that immediately made him sick. He woke up several hours later in a room where Mutsumi took him when he passed out. Just then, he noticed a bomb right above them which immediately exploded. Shion told Kengo, who was previously disguised as the school nurse, to go check out the scene. Meanwhile, Taiyo managed to shield himself and Mutsumi from the explosion by hiding under a couch, and Taiyo realized that the bomber had placed a tracker on him which was also the 3rd bomb. When the bomb was about to explode, Taiyo leapt out of the building, and Kyoichiro made it just in time to save him using his special threads while disarming the bomb in the process. Afterwards, the other family members brought a tied-up Tamaya to the building, and he tried to beg for mercy, but Kyoichiro launched him outside the building and into the air where he was destroyed by a replica of the tracker bomb. Some days later, Taiyo woke up and accidentally stepped on Goliath's tail, causing it to bite him out of anger. Some minutes later, Mutsumi helped Taiyo tape up his injured arm, and she revealed that she'd tasked Goliath with guarding him so that Kyoichiro wouldn't try to unalive him in his sleep again. Afterwards, he met up with Futaba and went on his knees as he begged her to make him stronger. Futaba said he didn't need to worry because they were already planning to train him bit by bit to accommodate his wimpy nature, but he argued that it would take too long, and brought up how he and Mutsumi nearly ended up dead during the bomber attack. He then loudly claimed that he wanted to get stronger for Mutsumi, but his trashy heroic speech was interrupted when Futaba suddenly started bouncing him around the room using her wind powers while explaining that she had talent in Aikido and Jujutsu, despite her lack of physical strength. She revealed that it took 3 years to train even those armed with Yozakura talent, which meant that a cannon fodder like him would require a lot more time. She then tossed him on the chair and asked him if he wanted to give the Yozakura-style all-out training a try. When he showed interest, she said she'd do it under the condition that he lived in their mansion for a month and explained that she was giving him that opportunity because his home was wrecked due to their own disorderly conduct. She then revealed that the training would begin a month from then, and as he moved to thank her, a trapdoor opened beneath him. Luckily, he managed to hold on to the sides of the door, which saved him from falling into the spiky pit below, and then she explained that their mansion was rigged all over the place with traps for spy training. The next morning, the alarm clock in Taiyo's room started ringing, but he didn't get out of bed until it literally turned into a bomb and exploded right above him. He ran out of the room to save himself, but then accidentally activated a bunch of fire traps that barbecued him on his way to breakfast. At the breakfast table, Mutsumi tended to her wimpy husband's injuries when Kengo came by to troll him, only to get knocked in the head by Mutsumi. As Taiyo ate, he asked Mutsumi how she managed to survive in that hellhole, causing her to reveal that the traps didn't activate for her. Shion told Taiyo that if he got accepted by the house, he could set the traps not to go off for him, and revealed that all the traps in the house were controlled by a single computer. Suddenly, Taiyo got a stomachache and Futaba revealed that their meals was also part of the training. Nanawa said he needed to build up tolerance because everyone's food apart from Mutsumi's was laced with poison which caused diarrhea. Taiyo rushed to use the bathroom, but when he arrived at the door, he saw that it was locked up like a national treasury, and Shion explained that in order to get into that bathroom, he needed to crack the password that refreshed every minute. The next morning, every Yozakura family member dealt with their exploding alarm clock with an incredible amount of stees, apart from Taiyo, who got blown up again. He failed several other tests, including the accuracy test, which caused his shower to dump an entire river of water on his face during his bath. At school, Taiyo told his friends who came to check on him that he was okay, but in reality, he was being weighed down by the 30-kilogram shirt. When he got home, he did some target practice outside that house, until Mutsumi came by to invite him for some tea. Mutsumi said he was pushing it too hard for her sake, and when he tried to deny it, she brought up how he's always been protecting her, causing Shion and Shinzo, who were eavesdropping outside, to smile at each other. The next morning, Taiyo cleared a bunch of tests, including the marksmanship test to put on the TV, and afterwards Shinzo tried to guide him in his shooting when Shion entered the room. Taiyo asked Shion why Shinzo normally stayed in a high-tech trash can, and she replied that it was because he was a lazy introvert. The following morning, Taiyo passed a bunch of tests until the breakfast left his tummy in shambles again, and the bathroom door proved to be that final boss. The other family members started mocking him, but when Taiyo suddenly collapsed on the floor, everyone rushed to his aid. Several minutes later, Nanao scanned his body and realized that he had a fever caused by fatigue. However, Taiyo said he'd continue living in the Yozakura house for the remaining week, and Futaba then removed the disguise he'd been wearing on his body to reveal a severely bandaged body. She said there's no way he'd survive if he kept going like that, and pointed out how the rest of the family were secretly helping him to train extra hard to master the tests. However, Taiyo said it wasn't their fault because he was the one who pleaded with them when they tried to stop him. She karate chopped his head and told him he needed to take care of himself if he wanted to take care of Mutsumi. She then handed him a code-breaking book of hers and told him to study it until he got better. Much later, Taiyo finally managed to open the bathroom door, causing everyone to celebrate him like he'd just won the World Cup. Just then, his ring started glowing, and Futaba said it was because he was finally acknowledged as a member of the Yozakura family. Some days later, Mutsumi was making breakfast when Taiyo stunned her into pouring more poison than usual by asking her how to put on a pair of plot armors. She started treating him like a disgusting leech, so he desperately explained that he was only practicing his disguise skills, and just then, Kengo walked into the room fully disguised as the school nurse. When Shinzo walked into the kitchen, he saw all of them goofing off together, and when Kyoichiro tried to join in on the fun, Mutsumi knocked both him and Kengo out. Some hours later, Taiyo and Shinzo were walking down the hallway, and Shinzo told Taiyo that he was heading out for a low-level mission, which involved retrieving the original plate for counterfeit money. At school, Taiyo and Mutsumi were walking together in the schoolyard when a loose baseball came flying towards them, and Taiyo pulled off a top-tier aura move by catching the ball without looking and launching it directly into the hands of one of the baseball players on the pitch, causing them to beg him to join their team. During lunch period, Mutsumi told Taiyo to be careful, since he was now becoming more superhuman, and brought up how people were calling him a ninja behind his back recently, because of the Madara-level aura farming he'd been doing subconsciously. Some hours later, Mutsumi was doing an outrageous amount of paperwork with Taiyo's help, and she explained to him that administrative work was part of the Yozakura head's job. Just then, she found a document that made her annoyed with Kengo, and when they went to his room, they saw that it was a huge mess. When Kengo came out of the trash pile, Mutsumi said he forgot to attach the paperwork for a report again, but he acted like he didn't care at all, so Taiyo tried to look for the missing paperwork on his behalf. However, he ran into some weapons lying around which discouraged him from looking any further, and Kengo came out of the trash pile wearing nothing but his natural bathing suit, as he claimed that he'd never do anything that's a hassle. Kengo suddenly leapt off the trash pile and slipped past Taiyo by disguising himself as Mutsumi, which allowed him to successfully escape the room. Mutsumi activated a hibernate function on her family ring, which made a large fence appear all around the house. Meanwhile, Shinzo was sneaking through the air ducts during his mission, and he used a set of X-ray goggles that enabled him to spot the counterfeit notes within the box which they were contained in. He wondered how their technology was so sophisticated, and then watched as the boss of the fraud company was informed by his workers that their counterfeit bills now controlled 60% of the market. When the boss said it was thanks to a certain youngster, Shinzo realized that there was someone pulling the strings. He eventually broke into a room where a special counterfeit bill was being held, but suddenly the alarm started going off, causing him to run away desperately with the item. At the same time, Mutsumi and Taiyo went around the house in search of Kengo, and they couldn't find him in the rooms of the other siblings. It eventually got to a point where they had to check Kyoichiro's room, and when they got there, they saw that the walls were covered in pictures of Mutsumi, causing them to change their course immediately because they wanted nothing to do with the weirdo's gooning chambers. Some minutes later, they were discussing with the other siblings by the hallway when Taiyo finally spotted Kengo hiding in a Mona Lisa painting. He immediately started to run away again, causing them to chase him, and they eventually got to a spot in the hallway where Mutsumi saw Taiyo laying on the floor. Taiyo told her that Kengo ran into a secret passageway that was nearby, and she yelled out of frustration before turning off the mansion's hibernation mode. When they went back into Kengo's room, she suddenly handcuffed him and said she figured out that he was Kengo because he left several clues that suggested he wasn't Taiyo. After a little pep talk from Mutsumi, he undid his disguise and helped Taiyo find the missing paperwork. Some hours later, Taiyo was having lunch when he got a call from Shinzo, who cried for Mutsumi to come save him. Shinzo explained to her that he'd run out of weapons after engaging in a gunfight with the enemy, so she sent in Taiyo to help him out. A few minutes later, Taiyo arrived at the location and started snooping around the building until one of the guards pointed a gun at him. Following the lessons he once took from Shinzo, he used some slick moves to disarm the guard and knock him out. Using his spidey sense, he detected some guards approaching and easily knocked them down one by one. When one of them tried to call in for help, Taiyo used a special gun Shinzo gave him to destroy the man's walkie-talkie before taking him out as well. Taiyo eventually arrived at the room which Shinzo was hiding, and Shinzo immediately hugged him out of relief. When some guards stormed the room, Shinzo dismantled them in the blink of an eye using a gun Taiyo brought for him and took down every other guard in their way as they ran along. Eventually, they reached a spot where Taiyo was shot in the leg by the enemy boss, who then asked Shinzo to surrender. When Shinzo put down his gun, Taiyo handed him a special fork which he used in destroying the assassin's sniper rifle before taking him out with several more shots. Some hours later, the enemy boss was interrogated and ultimately bludgeoned to death with a hammer by a mysterious man who was targeting Taiyo. Some days later, Taiyo was walking along the street while talking to Mutsumi on the phone when he saw the mysterious man who was looking for him. He introduced himself as a detective of the Koizumi precinct named Seiji and asked Taiyo to come with him. The two of them went to a room in the police station where he showed Taiyo a photo of him fighting against one of the enemy guards during the mission with Shinzo, and he informed him that the picture was posted on the dark web. Seiji also played the clip where Taiyo shot down a guard's walkie-talkie, as well as all the other chaotic things which Taiyo had been a part of with the family so far, and asked him if he was trying to become a god of juvenile crime. Seiji then guessed that he belonged to a secret organization and told him to start talking. Taiyo realized that he was telling him to sell out the family, so he boldly claimed that he didn't know anything. However, Seiji forced him into drinking some water which was laced with truth serum, but little did he know that Taiyo had a water catcher balloon in his throat which contained all of the water. When Taiyo said he didn't know anything again, Seiji tried to crush him with a hammer. However, Taiyo dodged by launching himself into a corner, where he saw the bloodied remains of a drug dealer. Seiji then said he'd ask Taiyo's friends at school in person if he didn't give up, and eventually Taiyo noticed a special thread sticking behind Seiji. Taiyo said with determination in his eyes that he didn't know anything, and even if he did, he wouldn't give it to a lunatic like him if his life depended on it. Seiji then tried to attack him with the hammer again, but Taiyo dodged, and the impact of the hammer destroyed the wall to reveal Kyoichiro hiding behind it while listening to their entire conversation using a stringed cup. Taiyo couldn't understand what was going on, so Kyoichiro revealed that Seiji was his former classmate who helped the family cover their tracks in exchange for help in his investigations. When Kyoichiro asked Seiji how Taiyo performed, Seiji walked up to Taiyo and told him he did well for not selling out his comrades. The next day in school, Kyoichiro came into Taiyo's class and announced that he'd be taking over their modern Japanese class since the teacher in charge had urgent business to handle. During the class, Taiyo struggled to maintain consciousness, and just when he decided to take a little nap, Kyoichiro sent a chalk flying in the direction of his face. After he dodged this deadly attack, Kyoichiro explained to him using Morse code that he needed to learn how to control his sleepy urges as a spy, and Mutsumi replied using Morse code of her own, telling him to stop bothering Taiyo. He then somehow started simping for Mutsumi using Morse code, and Taiyo told Mutsumi not to bother about him because he intended to ace this training challenge. Suddenly, Yoichiro released a weird gas everywhere that made everyone in class fall asleep apart from Mutsumi, who had a gas mask on as she chewed him out for it. When they checked on Taiyo, they assumed he was deep into La La Land, but when Koichiro tried to throw a bunch of chalks at him, he destroyed them using his stun gun. Mutsumi was stunned when she noticed that Taiyo pulled that move off while sleeping, and Koichiro said he was pleased that Taiyo finally entered the half-awake state. He then threw a barrage of chalks at Taiyo, but the low-budget Zenitsu dodged and deflected all of them at high speed. Sometime later, Taiyo was reading a spy dating book, and he was stunned to learn that 90% of spy marriages ended in divorce due to the busy nature of spies. When Mutsumi entered the room, he tried to ask her out on a date, but he suddenly got a call from Seiji, who told him to come for an urgent mission. He arrived at the amusement park which Seiji directed him to, and Seiji tasked him with apprehending a couple in the area who were carrying illicit guns. Just then Mutsumi made a surprise appearance and said she asked Seiji to join the mission, since it would feel more natural for Taiyo to be hanging out with his girl in a dating spot like that. Some minutes later, Mutsumi suggested they follow a mysterious couple in the area, and they ended up joining them on a roller coaster ride. After the ride, they sat across from the couple and watched them act like cringe rom-com couples, despite looking like gangsters. Mutsumi then pointed out another sus couple in the area, and they joined them in a merry-go-round ride where they saw they. After the ride, Mutsumi pointed out a third mysterious couple which they followed into a gift shop, and they watched them share a cup of coffee like a normal couple. When Mutsumi left to get some drinks, Taiyo got suspicious of them when he heard them talking about a special package, but it ended up being a wedding ring which the man used in proposing to the woman. Just then, Taiyo overheard a couple arguing with each other, and he watched in shock as their argument escalated into a gunfight. When Taiyo saw that they'd destroyed the rose he planned on giving Mutsumi, he angrily took them out with his special stun gun. Some hours later, the ruffian couple were arrested by the police, and Seiji thanked Taiyo for his help. Afterwards, Taiyo and Mutsumi rode on the Ferris wheel, and Taiyo gave Mutsumi that rose while explaining that it got messed up during the gunfight. Some days later, Shion finally finished a mission in Call of Duty, and as she was about to get some sleep, she noticed that her system was being hacked by a rival hacker. Shion showed her who was boss by taking control of her system completely, forcing her to unplug the device from the socket. When the mysterious hacker rebooted her system, she saw multiple photos of Taiyo, which pleased her. A few hours later, Shion came downstairs looking paler than a zombie from The Walking Dead, and she explained to Mutsumi that she was handling some weirdo who hacked their database to check out Taiyo's personal data. As Taiyo and Mutsumi walked to school together, they were ambushed by the mystery hacker who started attacking them using some special pins. They evaded the attack and ran away, but the mystery hacker chased them on into an alley, where Taiyo brought out his gun to face her. He blocked her attack and pushed her to the side, causing her to fawn over how powerful he is. When Mutsumi saw the gear she was wearing, she recognized her as the Manhunter spy named Ayaka, and Ayaka got so ticked off by the fact that she said her Sue's nickname that she threatened to turn her into a pincushion. Mutsumi explained to Taiyo that Ayaka was popular in a bad way because she used her spy techniques to stalk men she was infatuated by and ultimately stabbed them to death with her needles. Ayaka then revealed that an underground company had placed a bounty of $100,000 on his head. She yapped for minutes about how much she admired him, and she took out a spy which was sneaking up above them, before revealing that the bounty was causing more and more people to want to unalive Taiyo. After spending another couple of minutes glazing Taiyo, she told Taiyo to become her bedroom buddy, but he declined by telling her he was already married to Mutsumi, causing her to cry. During her tearful rant, she revealed that Koichiro was the one who gave her the access code, which allowed her to look into Taiyo's data, and then used a special move that flooded the entire area with pins before running away. The next day in school, Ayaka introduced herself in Taiyo's class as a transfer student, and she was given the seat right beside Taiyo's. As she walked to her seat, she pretended to fall so she could launch one of her pins at Taiyo, but he blocked the attack using his book. For the next several hours, Ayaka tried several tactics to impale him with her pins, but he evaded all of them one by one. When Taiyo blocked another flurry of pin attacks from her, she finally lost it and used a special move that injected everyone in Taiyo's class with mind control poison, turning them into her loyal servants. Following her command, they held Taiyo down, and Ayaka tried to finish him off before she was blocked off by Mutsumi. Just then, the NPC spy from earlier tried to attack Ayaka from the window behind her, but Mutsumi pushed her away just in time to avoid the bullet. When the spy pointed his gun at Mutsumi, Taiyo broke free from his classmate's grip and Pikachu'd him using his electro gun. When Ayaka asked why Mutsumi saved her, Mutsumi replied that it made her happy that someone else appreciated how great Taiyo is, even if she went about it in a wild way. Ayaka went into tears as she realized she'd now fallen in love with Mutsumi. After school that day, Ayaka became Mutsumi's love puppy as they walked back home from school that day, and their little bonding session was interrupted when Taiyo got a sudden call from Shion. That evening, Shion invited Taiyo to play some video games with her, and Mutsumi, who was also in the room, offered to be Taiyo's backup. When they started the game, Taiyo and Shion both took down enemies that looked awfully familiar to Koichiro, and they eventually defeated the final boss, which was a giant monster train that looked like Koichiro. Just then, the newscaster reported that a runaway train had come to a sudden halt, and Shion explained that she hacked the system of her target by by transforming it into a video game and clearing it. She revealed that she brought Tayo there to help her stop some protesters who were about to crash a helicopter into a thermal power plant. When the game began, Shion gave him a special item which could revive him, and she defeated several mini Kyoichiros while Tayo struggled to find his way around the area. Suddenly, Tayo started moving through obstacles easily using cheat techniques, and this ticked Shion off so much that she yelled at him. Afterwards, Shion used a special game technique to leap into the air and take down the helicopter, which was represented as a dragon in the game. However, they noticed that the protesters sent a bunch of drones as a trump card, and Shion was considering using a trump card of her own before Tayo came up with an idea. Following his idea, they took control of the helicopter and used its guns to take down the drones. However, some drones slipped past them and they were stunned when they saw a strange avatar in their game take them out. When Shion revealed that it was the same avatar that was snooping into Tayo's files, Tayo and Mutsumi realized that it was Ayaka. After minutes of blasting repeatedly, Tayo, Ayaka, and Shion managed to take down all of the drones, and Shion decided to punish Tayo for using cheats by forcing him to play all the games she had for 3 nights in a row. One morning, Tayo was doing a Superman-level workout when he got a call from Nano, who told him to come pick him up from an evil laboratory. Nano explained that the lab he was at was where they secretly manufactured bioweapons like toxic gas, and he came there undercover on a mission to neutralize the weapon. He then revealed that the weapon was a germ bomb, which was named Sodom, which would wipe out all life forms within a 10-kilometer radius, and he ate it because it was too deadly for the outside world. Tayo immediately lost his cool when he saw him eat it, but he explained that his body was specially capable of detoxifying things like that. Nanao said it would take him about 3 hours to neutralize that amount, but the problem was that he was getting sleepy. He then told Tayo that he'd put everyone in the lab he was in to sleep and that he wanted him to come pick him up before the other labs noticed. When Tayo arrived at the lab, a security guard pointed his gun at him, but before Tayo could even react, an agent named Oga took out the security guard using his chain, and his partner Sui asked Tayo if he was also on that mission. Sui introduced himself and Oga as spies from a government-operated intelligence unit named Hinagiku, who were sent to neutralize that lab. When Sui asked Oga for a status report, Oga gave him directions to a spot where 5 armed guards were approaching them from, and Oga forced Tayo into accompanying them. The 3 of them moved through the lab together, destroying every enemy guard they came across, and they eventually got to the lab where Nano was staying. Tayo immediately rushed to check on Nano, and Oga suddenly tried to land an attack on Nano, which Tayo deflected using his dagger. When Tayo asked them what they were doing, Oka revealed that their mission was to unalive Nano. He asked why they were after Nano, and Sui explained that since Nano had ingested the weapon, he'd become a threat, and destroying him along with the weapon would be best for national security. He then asked Tayo to step aside, but Tayo took a bold stance in front of Namo and said that if they wanted to slay his younger brother, they'd have to go through him first. Oga tried to warn Tayo that he was way out of his league, but he was too little too late, because in the blink of an eye, Sui destroyed Tayo's weapon and left him as a bloody mess on the ground. As Sui moved to finish off Nanao, Tayo told him to stop and he was about to pull out his sword again before Nanao revealed that he'd finished detoxifying the Sodom. He showed him a patch test that proved he was telling the truth and begged him to let him treat his brother's injuries. In response, Sui said his mission was already complete and took the test with him as documentation as he walked away. Sometime later, Tayo woke up in a weird bondage position which Kyoichiro put him in, and Kyoichiro brought up how the Yozakura family's ratings in the black market had plummeted due to Tayo's loss against Sui before telling him that his weakness could have left to the death of Nano. His dumb villain speech was interrupted when Mutsumi and Nanao simultaneously whacked him in the head and forced him to apologize to Tayo. After Mutsumi took off Tayo's mouth plug, he expressed how guilty he felt for being weak, and Kyoichiro interrupted his moping session to tell him that the one way he could restore the Yozakura name was to defeat Hinagaku. A few days later, Sui ran into Tayo on a bus and asked him if he was there to avenge his previous defeat. Tayo remembered when Kyoichiro told him that the best way to defeat Hinagiku was to steal their intel by spying on them, so he told Sui that he intended to get stronger by watching him. Sui claimed that he didn't stand a chance of keeping up with him, and he immediately started moving at insane speeds using a technique called walking in flowers. Tayo chased him down and managed to get close to him by pulling his best spider monkey moves, but Sui stopped him from catching up by destroying his clothes with a single slash, causing the police to arrest him on the train for indecent exposure. Tayo spent the next several hours trying to catch up to Sui in the different places where he went to chill, but Sui stopped him every time by reducing his drip to his birthday suit. When he joined Sui and Oga in taking down some ruffians, Sui tried to embarrass him the usual way, but he managed to dodge slightly in the first attempt so that his naughty bits remained covered. When Uka started to glaze him for it, Sui destroyed both their clothes with a single slash. A few hours later, Nanao met Tayo all beat up in the kitchen of their mansion and asked him why he was pushing himself so hard despite being in a bad shape. Tayo replied that he had to because he was a weak elder brother who couldn't do anything. However, Nano brought up all of Tayo's heroics so far and assured him that he was a cool elder brother. Later that evening, Tayo met up with Sui at a gravesite, where Sui pulled out his sword with the intention of ending things. However, when Sui tried to land his super fast slash, Tayo managed to stop the attack while sustaining some minor injuries in the process because he remembered how all of Sui's attacks went. When he flung Sui away, Sui landed on his feet and realized why the Yozakuras chose Taiyo. He told Oga to tend to Taiyo's injuries, and as he did so, Sui acknowledged Taiyo before walking away. Some days later, Taiyo carried an extra large bag while walking with Mutsumi through the park, and they eventually arrived at a spot where they met Sui. Taiyo was stunned by the fact that Mutsumi knew Sui, and when he asked Mutsumi about it, she revealed that they've rubbed shoulders as colleagues. Sui then said he'd be taking them to meet the Hinagiku leader, and it didn't take long before they arrived at a cafe where Sui made a special latte order. The order ended up being a secret code that the barista used to activate a secret door which transported them through the floor into the Hinagiku headquarters. As they fell, Sui held onto Mutsumi in a way that made Taiyo jealous, and they were soon attacked from all angles by a stream of traps which included laser beams and arrows. Sui deflected every shot which came in his direction, while Taiyo hopped around like a monkey to avoid them, and they eventually arrived at the Hinagiku chief's office. Suddenly, an enormous boulder fell in the direction of Taiyo, but before it could make impact, the Hinagiku chief Rin made a dramatic entrance as she destroyed it with a single punch. Afterwards, they all feasted on some sweets which Mutsumi made, and Mutsumi introduced Rin to Taiyo as a former classmate of Kyoichiro's. She also revealed that Rin and Kyoichiro didn't get along very well, and suddenly Rin started snuggling Mutsumi in the same way Kyoichiro does. Just then, the walls of the building collapsed as Kyoichiro made his entrance, and he immediately threatened to do unspeakable things to the Hinagiku gang if they didn't hand over Mutsumi. When Rin confronted him, Kyoichiro launched a special threat attack at her, and she destroyed it with a punch. The two of them engaged in a heated brawl which shook the area so badly that the Hinagiku security started telling people to evacuate the building. Sui jumped up to stop them, but they both blew him away, and when Mutsumi tried to separate them herself, she stood in the path of two powerful knuckle sandwiches that were inches away from landing on her face. Luckily, Taiyo arrived in time to save her and take that hits himself, and as he was unconscious, Mutsumi stunned both Kyoichiro and Rin by threatening not to talk to them again if they caused any more trouble. Afterwards, they all went to a rooftop where Rin put Taiyo in charge of a mission to go undercover to investigate a politician named Kuroyuri. She said that despite his goofy appearance, he was the politician with the most momentum at the moment, because there was a lot of bloodshed behind his accomplishments. She told them about a group of triplet spies named Red, Blue, and Yellow, who he used as right-hand men to commit all sorts of crimes to work his way up. She also revealed that he was on the verge of making a major move ahead of the next general election, and added that her squad had confiscated a miniature bomb from a supplier who described Kuroyuri as his client. However, she said it wasn't enough to get a warrant for a politician, which was why they needed to get concrete intel of his bombing plans. When Taiyo asked why they chose him for the mission, Rin explained that Kuroyuri was aware of Hinagiku's existence, since he was a member of that country, but an outsider like Taiyo would be hard for him to detect. Suddenly, Mutsumi and Rin dressed Taiyo up as a salary woman, and when he asked why he had to be dressed as a woman, Rin revealed that Kuroyuri requested an employee that looked exactly like him. A while later, Kuroyuri introduced Taiyo as his new employer named Yoko, and suddenly some protesters came by to cause a commotion. Their ruckus caused one of the speakers in the area to fall, and Kuroyuri shielded one of the protesters from the impact using his own body before using Talk no Jutsu to convert them to his side. Afterwards, he was carried inside a hospital bus, and while he was in there, he revealed that it was all a ruse to boost his popularity rankings. Taiyo, who listened while hiding underneath the table, felt disgusted, and he decided not to let the crooked politician have his way. For the next couple of days, Taiyo watched him and the triplet spies commit all forms of heinous crimes to boost his popularity, and he wondered how they came up with these plans when all they did was dance like carnival weirdos all day. He suddenly realized that their dance steps were all more code for their plans, and he overheard them discussing the terrorist bomb plan they were cooking. The plan was to take out all of Kuroyuri's rivals with a bomb underneath the stage, but when he activated the trigger, the bomb exploded in a nearby fountain instead, because Taiyo put it there just before the event. Suddenly, Kuroyuri pointed a gun at Taiyo, and revealed that he had another bomb before shockingly calling Taiyo's name. He blasted Taiyo's head and activated the bomb, causing an explosion in the building, but he soon noticed that the targets were all floating in some pink foam-like substance. Just then, Taiyo got back up and tried to take them out with his stun gun, but the spy trio neutralized his attack. When they tried to take him out, Sui destroyed all their guns in the blink of an eye and announced that he was taking all of them under arrest. The spy trio abandoned Kuroyuri and he desperately tried to shoot Sui, only to get clapped in seconds. Sui put Taiyo in charge of escorting Kuroyuri to the Hinagiku headquarters, and while they were on the road, Kuroyuri suddenly brought up Taiyo's parents' death while suggesting that it wasn't an accident. Taiyo got so enraged that he threatened to electrocute him. While asking how he knew about his family, Kuroyuri said that he wouldn't give him a direct answer, and then claimed that the underworld was littered with hidden truths. Just then, Taiyo got a call from Sui, who informed him that the deputy prime minister had been abducted, and he's being live-streamed from somewhere. Sui revealed that he was the target all along, and then he told Taiyo to interrogate Kuroyuri until he coughs up the location of the deputy prime minister. After the call ended, Kuroyuri said he was just about to head to the abduction site himself, and then dropped a weird earring he was wearing which exploded immediately. Afterwards, Taiyo escorted the driver out of the flames and informed Sui via call that Kuroyuri had escaped. However, Sui said they expected it because Kuroyuri was actually a legendary spy whose former alias was Kurogao, and he was believed to be dead 6 years ago but turned out to be alive. Sui then said they could rescue the deputy prime minister using the GPS tracker they planted on him and told Taiyo to return to headquarters. Meanwhile, Kuroyuri met up with the deputy prime minister at his abduction spot, and when the prime minister called him out for being a scumbag politician, Kuroyuri said he had no interest in politics and removed his disguise to reveal that he was Kurogao, who the prime minister thought he'd already eliminated some time ago. Kurogao then admitted to the world that he'd inflicted vengeance on numerous politicians behind the scenes and said he wanted to make the deputy prime minister's unaliving a public event because he was the only one who no one knew his true story. He then pointed a gun in his face and told him to confess his crimes or get destroyed instantly. However, the deputy prime minister said he'd never say the truth so bluntly because it would make him less of a politician. Kurogao attempted to unalive him with a gunshot, but the feed got cut off from the world because Taiyo showed up at the right moment to disrupt them by shooting the video camera. Taiyo asked Kurogao to let the deputy prime minister go, but Kurogao confidently replied that Taiyo couldn't shoot him because if he did, the deputy prime minister would be caught in the crossfire. Kurogao then fired a bullet that struck Taiyo's gun out of his hand, but Taiyo immediately rushed behind him and grabbed onto him using a special Yozakura technique. However, Kurogao easily broke free from his hold and pinned him to the ground. He then picked some steel wires from Taiyo's pocket while explaining how they worked, and Taiyo wondered how he knew about Yozakura fight techniques. Kurogao explained that he was well versed in gathering information, and Taiyo asked why a spy with his skills became a filthy politician who destroyed people. Kurogao said he was in it for revenge, and then stared at the deputy prime minister as he brought up an incident between them in the past. Back then, Kurogao finished eliminating one of his targets, and then put on his goofy disguise as he went back home to celebrate with his daughter Yuri. His daughter then pointed out that there was a present which came in for him, and just then the present exploded, destroying Yuri in the process. Back in the present, Kurogao told the deputy prime minister named Shirasagi that he was the last man standing in his list, and Taiyo tried to face off against him again, only to get blocked off by the triplet spies. Kurogao tried to gaslight Taiyo by promising to tell him about his family if he gives up, but Taiyo said he wouldn't take the offer because he didn't want any more people to die. Just then, Sui showed up and slashed a huge hole in the ground which sent him and the triplet spies to the floor below, leaving Taiyo in charge of arresting Kurogao. When Taiyo tried to attack Kurogao with a battle knife, he pulled an Uno reverse card by stabbing him and punching him to the ground. At the same time, the triplet spies began showcasing their unique abilities, which included flames, lighting, and a sharp water pressure that could slice through rock, and Sui told them about his speed technique as well. The triplets launched a huge combo attack at him, but Sui used a special Bankai move of his to destroy the attack as well as the trio in a single slash. Just when Sui started thinking of heading to help Taiyo, he was ambushed by a projectile attack which he barely managed to deflect. Meanwhile, Taiyo gave a hero speech to Kurogao before charging at him again, and just when Kurogao thought HR had him all figured out, Taiyo pulled off Sui's speed technique and used it to zoom in behind him. Taiyo then grabbed him from behind, and Kurogao tried to stab him from behind again, but his blade couldn't penetrate Taiyo's enhanced skin. He tried to use his gun, but Taiyo countered easily by blocking it with a special gum which Shinzo made, and his attempt to use a spare gun failed as well because Taiyo used Kyoichiro's steel threads to destroy it while launching him to the ground. While he was on the ground, Kurogao attempted to tell Taiyo about his parents' deaths, but before he could do so, a bullet from nowhere pierced his throat. They realized that he was silenced by an assassin, and Sui said some comforting words to Taiyo while he clutched a map which Kurogao secretly handed him. The map led Taiyo to the tree where Kurogao buried his daughter, and Taiyo found a box hidden within the trunk of the tree. When Taiyo got back home, he was given a warm welcome by the entire family. The next day, Rin threw a hot pot party at the Hinagiku headquarters to celebrate their successful mission, and once again, Kyoichiro showed up uninvited, but she decided to let it slide this time because he brought some special beer for them. Sui used his sword technique to slice all the monsters which Rin gathered into smaller bits, and when the food was ready, Rin and Kyoichiro had an intense food fight which made everyone else run away from the area. During the fight, Sui flexed his speed skill once again by gathering all the flying pieces of food and plating them in the blink of an eye. When he handed the food to Taiyo and Mutsumi, he told Taiyo that his body could get wrecked if he carelessly imitated his speed technique, and then he motivated him to build up his body so that he could keep improving at it. When the hot pot was over, Rin and Oga were napping while Taiyo was in a private spot staring at the mystery box while thinking about Kurogao's final words to him. Mutsumi interrupted his brainstorming by asking if he intended to open the box. Taiyo brought up how he got the urge to unalive Kurogao for a split second during their fight, and said he was scared that he'd actually pull the trigger if he was faced with the person who unalived his family. He got emotional as he continued expressing his fears, and Mutsumi calmed his nerves by kissing him on the cheek. Just then they noticed that the contents of the box had spilled out, and Taiyo was baffled by the fact that it was a marble, so Kyoichiro explained that it was a method used in recording optic data. When Taiyo and Mutsumi arrived back home, Ayaka made a surprise appearance which left Taiyo baffled, and Mutsumi revealed that she was now living with them as a maid. Ayaka said said she was well versed in housekeeping due to the undercover mission she'd done, and then pulled out the marble from Tayo's pocket, which she referred to as an optical drive, before handing it over to Shion. Ayaka brought up the fact that Tayo's bounty on the dark web had shot up to 500,000, and started tweaking as she talked about all the weird things she planned to do to him. She said she'd help him improve his spy skills by trying to assassinate him every day, and Tayo tried to talk Mutsumi out of her decision to let Ayaka stay, but Mutsumi said she was okay with it because it was for his own good. Later that evening, Tayo woke up from a nap and went to the bathroom where he was ambushed by Akiya, who took 1,000,000 of pictures of his Excalibur for OnlyFans, which overwhelmed him so much that he fell on the floor. She then tried to assassinate him using an acid blaster shampoo she was holding, but he managed to dodge her attack, and suddenly she got Pikachu'd by the electric trap within the tub. Tayo wanted to help her, but she told him not to do so because he'd end up getting electrocuted as well. However, he helped her anyway by grabbing onto the main power source. He held onto her as they were both eating about 1,000,000 volts of electricity, and eventually the room exploded as the trap deactivated. Tayo landed in a sus position on top of Ayaka outside the bathroom, and when Kyoichiro arrived, he threatened to destroy Tayo with a deadly weapon for cheating on Mutsumi. Sometime later, Tayo was heading out for a mission, and when Mutsumi tried to hand him his phone, a call came in from a girl named Kaoru. Tayo immediately rushed to end the call before leaving, and seeing this, Ayaka started to tell Mutsumi that Tayo was secretly cheating on her. She brought up all the unusual things Tayo does and said they were signs of cheating, but Mutsumi wasn't buying her nonsense. The next day, Mutsumi and Tayo went on a walk with Goliath, and Mutsumi told Tayo that Goliath refused to go on walks with anyone that wasn't the head of the family. When Tayo asked why, she explained that Goliath was a special breed called a wolf dog that was produced through repeated modifications since the mid-Edo period. Goliath suddenly got bigger, and Mutsumi revealed that he's an elite breed of guard dog, with a durable body and longevity, which enabled him to serve their family for generations. She climbed on his back and invited Tayo to join her, but when he tried to do so, Goliath swatted him away with his tail. Mutsumi then suggested holding onto the leash while they moved ahead, but that backfired as well because Goliath moved at super high speed through the river, knocking out Tayo in the process. They arrived at a park where a bomb suddenly went off, and while Goliath protected Mutsumi from the blast, Tayo shielded Goliath as well. Afterwards, Goliath used his special ability to track down the low-rent Joker who orchestrated the attack and take him down. After chilling on the park bench for some minutes, Goliath rode Tayo and Mutsumi back to the mansion, and when they got there, Tayo was attacked by Koichiro and Ayaka, who accused him of cheating. Just then, a member of Hinagiku named Momeji showed up to deliver a package, and the old man she was with revealed himself to be her grandfather named Kaoru, who was the Kaoru that Tayo had been speaking with. Kaoru revealed that the item they helped Tayo get was Kyoichiro's favorite tea and spoke about how much Tayo wanted it to be a secret. Kyoichiro was so surprised that Tayo went to such lengths for him that he wrapped himself up in his threads and passed out. Some days later, Futaba had a brutal training session with Tayo, where she made him dodge some tennis balls being blasted at him by a machine gun. Afterwards, they met Mutsumi in the living room, who showed them an old photo where they celebrated the fact that Nano passed the spy exams, causing Tayo to ask what a spy license was. Futaba explained that the spy license was a spy membership card which was issued by the Spy Association. When Tayo asked what the Spy Association was, she explained that it was an organization that was founded by spies to foster mutual aid, and added that those who passed the spy exams held by the Spy Association every year would be issued a spy license. She revealed that a spy would start from the bronze rank and move up to silver rank and ultimately gold rank after passing the promotion tests. Futaba also stated that missions became more advanced and lucrative the more a spy advanced in rank, and this made Tayo decide that he wanted to take the license exam. Just then, they overheard Ayaka making some noise in Shion's room, and when they went to check out what was going on, Shion explained that the program she was coding glitched out because Ayaka accidentally touched the cables when she was cleaning. Just then, the screen came back on and displayed a scene from a horror movie which paralyzed Futaba in fear. Mutsumi explained to Tayo that Futaba couldn't stand scary things because she knew her powers wouldn't work on ghosts. Shion brought up a time when she destroyed a haunted house on her own, and Mutsumi decided that they'd watch over Futaba until the next day when she'd be okay again. The family spent the next couple of hours babysitting Futaba, and when it was time for bed, Mutsumi tucked her in while telling her that Tayo would be standing guard over them so they could sleep in peace. Mutsumi then brought out a weird storybook which she intended to use in telling Futaba a bedtime story to make her fall asleep. However, when she read the story, Tayo noticed that it was more of a Tom Cruise movie than a nighttime story, and it suddenly made Mutsumi fall asleep. Tayo took over the reading, and when he got to the end of the story, Futaba clapped cheerfully while claiming that it reminded her of the good old days. Futaba apologized for letting him see her wimpy side, and then revealed that the book he just read was what her mom used to read to her all the time. Back then, she wasn't afraid of anything, but after her mom passed, she got clouded by the fear of losing someone she loved again. Tayo said he could relate to her because he also knew what it felt like to feel helpless after losing a loved one, and then he claimed that he wanted to become strong like the rest of the Yozakuras so that he could protect everyone dear to him. Futaba thanked him for keeping her company and sent him off to his room by wishing wishing him good luck in his exams. The next day, the spy license exam began, and Taiyo engaged in a heated game of tag along with the other examinees. When he finished in first place, the other examinees started to take notice of him, and one of them even tried to attack him with a blade while he was having lunch. But another spy named Tsukio blew him away with a special fan he was holding. Taiyo tried to thank him, but he started acting just as unhinged as Hisoka while simping for him, and Mutsumi revealed to Taiyo that Tsukio was the #1 playboy in the world of spies. Just then, the examinees were called to the location of their next exam, and when they got there, they were given a task to escape a container of water which they were chained in, and Taiyo cleared this easily. The next test was similar to hide and seek, and Taiyo was chased down by a masked weirdo who carried a giant hammer until he landed in the arms of Tsukio, who got him even more creeped out. They were then tasked to disarm a bomb as their next test, and while other examinees got blown to smithereens, Taiyo managed to clear it. Their next test was the written test, and once again the NPCs in the room failed miserably, but Taiyo managed to pull through when he saw that Tsukio finished in no time. Afterwards, the examiner announced that their exam was over and announced that the building they were in would explode in seconds. The examinees ran desperately through the hallway, and most of them met their maker, but Taiyo and Tsukio pulled off slick combat moves to dodge every trap and obstacle in their way. Just then, the examinee that targeted Taiyo earlier suddenly whacked him in the face, causing him to fall to a spot in the ground that was about to collapse. However, Tsukio saved Taiyo in a dramatic way that left him in the danger zone, and Taiyo immediately returned the favor by holding onto him so that he wouldn't fall in the river. Tsukio was impressed with Taiyo's determination, so he used his fan to summon heavy winds that blew both of them back to the floor above. There he informed Taiyo that he passed the exam, and reintroduced himself as a silver-ranked spy who was the proctor for the spy license exam. He revealed that he was there to test the examinees on the most important aspect of being a spy, which was humanity. He then handed Taiyo his spy license and simped for him, until he ran away. Some days later, Taiyo was stunned when he opened his school bag and saw an old geezer waiting inside it. The old man came out of the bag and introduced himself as Taiyo's grandpa, but in response, Taiyo called him an intruder and blasted him with his electro gun. Some minutes later, Mutsumi joined them in the room and introduced the old fool as her grandfather named Ban. Afterwards, he held on to both Taiyo and Mutsumi, as he praised Taiyo for having excellent reflexes, and he handed Taiyo a pile of cash, which he called a wedding gift/pocket money. He tried to run away with Taiyo, but Kyoichiro stopped him by tying him up with his threads. Ban asked Kyoichiro why he was there despite having an overseas mission, and Kyoichiro responded that he got an emergency request from the police, which was to bring Ban back to prison. Taiyo was stunned by the fact that he was an escaped convict, so Ban explained that he was permanently stationed in the prison as part of his mission to gather information from the underworld. He asked Kyoichiro to let him have a little fun, since he'd be going back soon, but Kyoichiro said it was out of the question, because Ban was a loose cannon who normally revealed spy secrets just to rizz up girls. Kyoichiro told Ban not to resist, but Ban suddenly got serious as he slipped through Kyoichiro's threads and dared him to stop him. Ban then activated a smoke screen by tapping his watch, and when the smoke cleared, everyone noticed that he'd vanished and took Taiyo with him. Some hours later, Kyoichiro informed Taiyo via call that Ban was a legendary mole who could infiltrate or escape any facility thanks to his flexible skeleton and joint dislocation skills. He then told him to catch him before things got out of hand, and Taiyo informed him that the old fool was already flirting around with women at a bar. When Taiyo noticed that Ban was about to spill some confidential information to his maidens, he jumped in to stop him, but Ban easily slipped from his grasp and sat on a nearby chair. However, the chair he landed on had a special glue which Nano made, so in order to escape it, Ban slipped out of his clothes, and then aura farmed while saying that only beautiful women could stop him. Taiyo tried several more attempts to subdue him, but the old man's moves were just too slick for him. Afterwards, Taiyo asked Ban why he didn't just wait till his mission was over before coming to see them, and Ban replied that it had to be on that day specifically. Ban then started telling him about how his wife named Seiko was a gorgeous woman with a cheerful smile, and admitted that he wanted to talk to Taiyo about that topic because he realized that Taiyo was very similar to him. He advised Taiyo to cherish the present, and said that all he wanted was for Taiyo and Mutsumi to be happy. Taiyo assured the old man that he would do everything in his power to make sure that Mutsumi is happy, and then handed him a drink. As they bonded, Keiko suddenly appeared and handcuffed herself to Ban before revealing that the handcuffs she used would explode if he tried to take them off by force or break them. Mutsumi also arrived and introduced Seiko as her grandmother. Ban begged Keiko to have a romantic date with him, but she said she couldn't because they had jobs to do. Afterwards, Ban was taken back to prison by the police, and Mutsumi informed Taiyo that Ban broke out on that very day because it was he and Keiko's anniversary. Some days later, Ban came by to see the family again, but Ayaka informed him that no one was around because they'd all gone for the monthly family trip. Meanwhile, the family members split up after having a meal at a cafe, and Taiyo walked around a shopping mall with Mutsumi, where Rin and the other Hinagiku members were also snooping around. Taiyo watched in shock as Mutsumi gathered some ammo, and she eventually revealed that the shopping mall they were in was a supply store for members of the underworld. At the same time, Shion and Shinzo bought some guns while Futaba got a massage from a buff ex-bodyguard named Chio. Also, Na now shopped for different poisons while Kyoichiro met in a secret room with a lady who handed him a mysterious book. After doing some personal shopping, Taiyo was approached by a little girl named Suzu, who was crying because she lost her dad. When Mutsumi checked on her, Suzu revealed that some scary men took her dad to the basement of the mall, which was actually a black market. When Taiyo and Mutsumi arrived at the black market, Taiyo was stunned to see that it looked exactly like Gotham City, and he managed to save Suzu's dad from the bald fraud that was terrorizing him. Afterwards, they were surrounded by a bunch of hooligans who wanted to take out Taiyo for the prize money, but Kyoichiro showed up just in time to save them. The other Yozakuras turned up as well and took out the remaining thugs in such an epic manner that the entire mall collapsed. As they walked out of the collapsing mall, the family bonded with each other, and Futaba sent Kyoichiro flying for making a sus joke about Taiyo. A few days later, Taiyo and Mutsumi met up with Shion, who informed them that the optical storage device that Taiyo got from the former spy Kurogao contained a guest list for the wedding reception of Yozakura's ninth head, which meant the wedding reception of Mutsumi's parents. Shion said the fact that Taiyo's parents' names were on the list was weird, and then she presumed that there was some kind of connection between the Yozakuras and Taiyo's family, the Asanos. Taiyo brought up the words which Kurogao told him about how his miraculous survival during the car crash that killed his parents was caused by a person and not God. Mutsumi suddenly got overwhelmed by guilt because she felt that Taiyo's family got unalived because they got involved with the Yozakuras, so Taiyo calmed her down by saying they didn't have enough information to be sure of that. He also said that whatever happened with their parents was in the past, and said some more romantic words which made her get teary-eyed. Taiyo then claimed that he wanted to know more about his family, and when he asked Shion to help him, she poked his eyes to remind him that he was the wimpy little brother in all this. Shion then brought up the fact that all the data on the former head of the Yozakura family should have been wiped out like normal, implying that the existence of the information they currently had meant that it was an underworld-related matter. She then said they needed to visit an organization called the Library of the Dead that collects information on those who've already vanished without a trace. When Taiyo arrived at the Library of the Dead, he used his spy license to gain access into that building, and as he moved around, he saw the librarian named Mi-chan unalive an airhead spy just for making a bit of noise in the building. Taiyo was rattled by what he just witnessed, and Shion made things even scarier by informing him that Mi-chan was a silver-rank spy that he couldn't beat in a fight if he tried. However, she assured Taiyo that he'd be fine so long as he didn't make a single sound, but as he silently patrolled the library, he saw several other spies get destroyed by Mi-chan for making the slightest bit of sounds. Taiyo eventually arrived at a section of the library where he saw some files on his father hide, and as he read through the document, he saw that it had an insertion slot for optical storage devices. When he put the optical storage device he got from Kurogao, the pages of the document suddenly transformed, and on the new pages he read that the members of his family were unalived by someone named Tanpopo. All of a sudden, the document in his hand exploded, and Shion immediately told him to get out of there as quickly as he could, but unfortunately Mama Yaga arrived before Taiyo could even move a muscle. He managed to dodge Mi-chan's instant death attack, and following Shion's instructions, he used his electro gun to turn off the lights in the building before running away. He ran as fast as he could, but it didn't take long before Mi-chan stood in front of him again. As Mi-chan charged towards him, Shion desperately tried to direct him away from her, but Mutsumi suddenly stole the mic from her and told Taiyo to take off his earphones. When Taiyo took them off, Mutsumi yelled into the microphone, and the sound waves from her voice took out Mi-chan, causing Taiyo to realize that Mi-chan couldn't withstand loud noise due to her ultra-sensitivity to sound. The next day, Taiyo was put in a painful bondage position by Kyoichiro, who informed him that Tanpopo was the same organization that unalived Mutsumi's mother. He revealed that Tanpopo was one of the organizations gunning for Mutsumi, and their agents usually had a dandelion tattoo on their hand. Kyoichiro then revealed the discovery he made thanks to the new piece of information that Taiyo discovered, which was that 15 people in the medical field were unalived in the medical field, and the man that could be connected to all of them was named Makoto. Sometime later, Taiyo disguised himself as a sickly old man as he visited Makoto's hospital with Mutsumi, who also disguised herself as an aged woman. Inside the hospital, they were called in to meet Makoto, and when Makoto checked on Taiyo, he said there were no signs of any illnesses. Afterwards, Taiyo was confused because Makoto seemed like a nice guy, and he shared a wholesome moment with Mutsumi where he said some sappy things that got him embarrassed afterwards. After Makoto left the hospital that night, Taiyo went through his computer and there he saw some information regarding the source of the Yozakura family's talent, which was a protein called seminine that was found in that blood of the Yozakura head. He also found out that the Yozakura blood was an extremely powerful doping agent because the seminine could also empower people outside the family when ingested, but it couldn't be produced synthetically. So in order to mass produce it as a bioweapon, they were planning on building a seminine factory with Mutsumi's heart. Just then, Makoto showed up and tried to take out Taiyo with some blades, but Taiyo managed to block his attack. After he pinned Taiyo to the ground, Taiyo noticed the dandelion tattoo on his neck, and he tried to finish off Taiyo, but Taiyo blocked and blasted him with his stun gun. However, Makoto tanked the attack and activated a weird device that transported him and the computer away. After he left, Taiyo was relieved that he managed to extract some of the data, and he decided to expose the schemes of Tanpopo, no matter what. Some days later, Mutsumi woke up after having a nightmare about a tragic day in her past, and after drinking some water, she walked up to Taiyo's door. At the moment, Taiyo was doing some research and he realized that there was no way to pinpoint Tanpopo's headquarters. While checking through some receipts data, he found a file named Dandelion, which made him realize that Dandelion was the English word for Tanpopo. Meanwhile, Makoto informed some of his associates that he ran into Taiyo, and he talked about unveiling some big step in their master plan, before getting interrupted by one of his allies named Nomen, who walked into the room. When Taiyo woke up the next day, he was stunned when he realized he was aboard a moving boat, and Kyoichiro, who was doing some fishing aboard the boat, said he wanted to have a bit of bonding time with him. Just then, Taiyo felt a tug on his fishing rope, and when he pulled it, he saw that it was an enemy spy who was hiding underwater. The enemy spy started raining bullets on him, and Taiyo dodged before sweeping him off his feet. When Taiyo asked Kyoichiro what was going on, Kyoichiro explained that he was currently undergoing a special training which he and Futaba used to do all the time when they were younger. Taiyo asked if the man he just beat was his training partner, but Kyoichiro said he was a real enemy soldier who he lured there by sending out flyers with Taiyo's face on them. Just then, some more armed enemies showed up, and while Taiyo fought them off, Kyoichiro told him that the task he was currently handling was something that even someone as weak as Sakura could finish in no time. After Taiyo defeated the enemies he was fighting, a torpedo suddenly came flying towards them, and it caused an explosion which destroyed the boat. After the explosion, Taiyo found a piece of debris which had the dandelion tattoo on it, and Kyoichiro revealed that the waters they were on were part of Tanpopo's smuggling route. He explained that Tanpopo set up an unmanned fighter in the area that blasted on anyone who got too close and said they were trying to lure Taiyo there. He asked Taiyo if he wanted to back down, but Taiyo passionately replied that he wouldn't back down so long as they were targeting Mutsumi. Just then, Kyoichiro wrapped him up with his threads and threw him to another part of the ocean, where he saw a torpedo moving towards him. Taiyo held onto the torpedo using some special threads he was carrying, and as he moved along with it, Kyoichiro informed him that the torpedo would soon reach the spot where he and the enemy spies were. Taiyo moved to the top of the torpedo, and he followed a set of instructions which the other family members had given him over time as he attempted to disarm it. He eventually used a special alloy he was given by Nanao to block the torpedo's signal, causing it to stop right in front of Kyoichiro. Afterwards, Kyoichiro smiled while the dumb enemy assassins glazed Taiyo for saving them. Meanwhile, the Tanpopo agents detected a strange object approaching their submarine, and it turned out to be the torpedo from earlier, which was now being driven by Kyoichiro and Taiyo. Kyoichiro proved to be the undisputed Aura King again, as he easily destroyed the submarine using his threads, causing an underwater explosion in the process. Afterwards, Kyoichiro and Taiyo were floating on the water, and Kyoichiro told him that the hotel he saw in the files he was researching was a suite room at Hotel Dandelion, which was where he could find Makoto. Some hours later, Taiyo was undercover at the hotel, and Kyoichiro told him he was sending Shinzo to his location before revealing that Tanpopo were lying in the open because they were confident that they could launch a counterattack whenever they pleased. After he ended the call, Futaba asked Kyoichiro why he involved Taiyo in the Tanpopo mess, and he told her it was simply because Taiyo was trying to investigate his parents' death. Meanwhile, Taiyo tried to move up to the suite floor of the hotel, but got knocked into a wall instead by the elevator security system, and one of the staff in the area told him he needed to get past the facial recognition software to get to the suite floor, which was reserved for only elites. Taiyo then tried to roleplay Spider-Man by climbing to the top floor from the outside, but he ended up being the casualty of a violent lover's spat that was happening in one of the hotel rooms. In the suite area, Makoto got informed about a suspicious employee in the area, and he was confident that he'd soon be arrested. He gave Nomen a mysterious item and started convincing him to use it, but they were interrupted when Taiyo showed up in a cat costume and pointed his gun at them. When Taiyo pulled off his disguise, Makoto said he didn't have time to fight with him, and Nomen threw the glass of a window at him, which he managed to dodge. Nomen immediately charged at him again, but Taiyo blocked his punch. Makoto escaped in a helicopter while motivating Nomen to try the substance which he gave him. Nomen revealed to Taiyo that the item was a doping agent named Hazakura, which allowed people to replicate Yozakura power. When he injected it into himself, he became a deformed version of the Hulk, and Taiyo tried to shoot him, but he instantly blocked Taiyo's shot with his bare hands before punching him into a wall. At the same time, Makoto informed his associates that Nomen was battling Taiyo and said they could begin the next stage of their plan. Back at the hotel, Nomen pulled out a blade which Taiyo managed to stick into him and started choking out Taiyo until Shinzo made a dramatic entrance by blasting him into the wall. Shinzo apologized to Taiyo for coming late, and Nomen got back up while expressing his desire to battle against Shinzo. Seeing that Nomen had regenerative abilities, Shinzo blasted him with all of his guns at once, and then launched Taiyo out of the building into the air where he was lifted by a parachute. Shinzo told Taiyo to leave the battle against Nomen to him since reinforcements were on the way, but before he could say more, Nomen charged at him. He managed to block Nomen's punch and then started grappling with Nomen. As they tried to overpower each other, Nomen threatened to blow up the entire hotel and all of its inhabitants, using a bomb that could be activated if he grits his teeth. Taiyo overheard this conversation and got worried about Shinzo as well as the people in the hotel. Nomen told Shinzo that the only way to ensure he doesn't grit his teeth was to let him beat him, and he landed a blow squarely on Shinzo's face. The shock waves from the suite room reverberated through the entire hotel as Nomen pummeled Shinzo until his hands got bloody. When he told Shinzo to give up, Shinzo told him he was waiting for something, and suddenly they got informed that a goofy terrorist had taken over the hotel. The terrorist in question was Tayo, who was trying to forcibly evacuate the building by intimidating the people around using fake weapons. Thanks to his goofy display, the people ran away from the building, and a mysterious white-haired spy helped a woman who tripped on the floor as he walked in. When the security informed Noman that the people were evacuated, Shinzo struck back with a Detroit smash that pushed Noman into the corner. While showcasing the new iron gloves he was wearing, Shinzo said he'd make Noman pay for insulting their family with his knockoff powers. He then pulled out a massive gun which he charged up with an insane amount of electrical energy with the intention of blasting Noman to hell. Noman tried to counterattack, but Tayo hacked the detonator of his bomb, allowing Shinzo to fire a massive electrical charge directly at Noman. Afterwards, Noman collapsed to the ground, and Makoto, who watched from his helicopter, felt disappointed, but he said the white-haired assassin who was in the building would handle the situation. Meanwhile, Tayo moved to meet up with Shinzo, but he tripped and fell into the arms of the white-haired spy who advised him to take care of himself as he walked away. When Shinzo came by, he noticed that Tayo had bloody holes all over his body, and Tayo immediately collapsed. When they returned to the mansion, Tayo was bandaged up in a hospital bed, and Nano informed everyone that Tayo was shot more than a dozen times, mainly in his internal organs. Nano added that they'd have been too late to save him if it weren't for Shinzo's first aid, and Mutsumi grabbed his arm with a concerned expression on her face. As he told them that Tayo wouldn't regain consciousness soon, Kyuichiro started drawing weird things on Tayo's face, so he got knocked in the head by Futaba and thrown out of the room by Namama. Afterwards, Futaba and the other family members left the hospital room, and Nano handed Mutsumi a box of medical equipment which she could use on Tayo if anything happened. Some minutes later, Kyoichiro made some coffee while Futaba stared at him with an angry look in her eyes. After she left, Shinzo entered the room, and Kyoichiro noticed that Shinzo was feeling guilty about Tayo's condition, so he told him that it wasn't his fault. Shinzo told him that he couldn't believe in himself, and brought up how he wasn't able to detect any movements or murderous intent at the scene where Tayo was shot. He guessed that the bloody holes he saw in Tayo's body were a delayed reaction to an attack which happened before he arrived. He claimed that there was just one person he knew who was capable of pulling off such an attack, and they were interrupted by the intruder alarm, which revealed that there were over 1,000 enemies in their yard. The intruders were all enhanced with the doping agent, and when one of them started to act like a maniac, the leader of the group named Yama put him down. Makoto told Yama that the plan was to get rid of all the Yozakuras excluding Mutsumi while they were gathered at the mansion, and officially told the enhanced madmen, which he called the Hazakura Battalion, to begin their attack. The battalion breached the Yozakura security system and started making their way into the front lawn, but they stopped when they saw Goliath standing in front of them. Goliath went into his ultra-large moor and proceeded to destroy the battalion members before the rest of the Yozakuras showed up on the battlefield. The Yozakura siblings showcased their insane abilities while destroying the armed lunatics, and Yama ordered a second group of the battalion to storm the mansion, but unfortunately the family's equivalent of Gojo Satoru was waiting for them at the entrance. Kyoichiro destroyed all of them without even lifting a finger, and Goliath handled what was left of the group. However, Yama refused to back down, and he unveiled his true monstrous body, which had an enormous hand. He used this arm to punch Goliath into the Yozakura mansion, and this allowed Yama to enter the mansion because Kyoichiro deactivated his thread traps in order not to harm Goliath. Yama then started trolling Kyoichiro, and they were interrupted when the mysterious white-haired spy from before activated hibernation mode on the mansion, creating a fence which kept the Yozakuras out of the building with Yama inside. Kyoichiro told Futaba not to worry since the enemies weren't looking to destroy Mutsumi, and brought up the fact that hibernation mode could only be activated using the Yozakura head's ring. He then put her in charge of handling the battalion as he went on to get the ring of the former head of the family, which was with the white-haired spy. Meanwhile, Mutsumi was checking on Tayo when the lights in the building suddenly went off and she started to wonder what was going on. She tried to contact Nanao, but the call didn't go through because Yama had already cut out the communication lines. Just then she noticed that Tayo's pulse was getting weaker, and she started to panic as she wondered how she could save her darling Tayo. At the same time, Kyoichiro walked to a part of the forest where he met the white-haired spy, and he told him that the cherry blossom ring which he shared with the ninth head gave him the same authority as the head over hibernation. He said the old man had no right to have the ring and then called him father. Back at the mansion, Mutsumi knew she had to do something even though she couldn't leave the hospital room, and when she stared at a photo of herself and her mom on the wall, she grabbed a syringe from the drawer. Some time ago, her mom told her that the blood which flowed within her granted her the power to do many good and bad things. However, her mom added that with great power came great suffering, and told her to make sure she only uses that power for someone she genuinely cares about, so that she'd be willing to accept all of their suffering as well. Back in the present day, Mutsumi extracted some of her blood and injected it into Tayo, but even after doing that, she noticed that his pulse was still going down, so she cried and begged him not to leave her. Just then, Yama arrived in the room and he tried to attack her from behind, but before he could lay a finger on her, Tayo reawakened and pushed him away. One of Tayo's eyes glowed pink as he pulled out his gun and told Yama not to touch his mommy.
Get out of here, man!
Yama was stunned when he saw the flower pattern glowing on Tayo's eyes, and when Tayo blasted him with his stun gun, he tanked the attack and charged at Tayo. Tayo met him in the air with a vicious kick that sent him flying through the wall. Yama struggled to gather his thoughts, and Tayo as well couldn't comprehend what was happening to him. But he charged at Yama again. He noticed that his body felt light, and Yama's moves looked slow to him. Without even looking at Yama, he punched him into the wall again and started to feel like he could beat him before his brain suddenly started breaking down. Yama got back up and explained to Taiyo that the summoning from Mutsumi's Yozakura blood was activating the cells all over his body, and its sensitivity was so overwhelming that it was destroying his brain's processing power. He then said that even with the Hazakura doping agent, half of his allies end up dying because they couldn't tolerate it, and then he prepared to launch another attack on Taiyo. Mutsumi suddenly grabbed Taiyo and told him to keep his senses in focus. He tried to tell her to run away, but she said she couldn't leave him alone before pointing out that getting out of there wouldn't be a walk in the park since the villains had activated hibernation. She then stated that she had no intention of letting them use her heart for evil, and smiled while telling Taiyo that she was willing to die together with him. She told him to close his eyes and focus on her voice, and as he listened to her, the power flowed harmoniously through his nerves, calming him down in the process. Just then, Yama grabbed Mutsumi and threw her into the corner, before launching his powered-up arm at Taiyo. However, Taiyo blocked his pathetic attempt at an all-for-one punch, and boldly claimed that he could see him before landing a powerful punch of his own that destroyed Yama's stomach. Yama was stunned by the fact that his stomach refused to regenerate after the punch, and he called Taiyo a monster as he fell to the ground. In the forest, Kyoichiro asked his dad to return the ninth head's cherry blossom ring, but in response, the old man cheerfully said Kyoichiro hadn't changed. The old man brought up the fact that everyone in the family was doing well, including Taiyo, who recently awakened, and he said that he was proud of them. He tried to continue his small talk, but Kyoichiro cut him off by asking why he went as far as using Tampopo to make Taiyo stronger. He brought up how many people had died in the process of seeking the power of Yozakura blood, and then pointed out everything the old man did in order to corner them at that moment, while accusing him of dragging his comrades into his plot to awaken Taiyo's abilities. The old man claimed that he wanted Taiyo to be a strong husband so that he could protect his beloved Mutsumi, and said he was just being a father. He then apologized for Goliath and staffed walking away, but Kyoichiro stopped him using a special move called Calm Storm that shredded everything in the area. Back at the mansion, Taiyo hugged Mutsumi and thanked her for saving him. Their romantic moment was interrupted when they got a call from Shion, who told Mutsumi to stand by for the meantime without deactivating hibernation. When Shion told Futaba that Taiyo and Mutsumi were safe, she told the family that it was time to wrap up their battle against the battalion losers. Following their plan, Kengo disguised himself as Mutsumi, causing the battalion members to chase him to a spot where Nanao and Shinzo trapped them in a pod. The muscle-headed idiots tried to escape by shooting the walls of the pod, but it didn't budge, and Futaba finished them off by using her wind powers to throw them to another part of the world. Back in the forest, Kyoichiro's father held onto the threads that were meant to have destroyed him, and praised Kyoichiro's skills before reminding him that he was the one who taught him how to use the threads, which were named steel spiders. However, Kyoichiro said he'd get the ring back, and he used the threads the old man was holding to extract it from his hand. Afterwards, the siblings reunited with Taiyo and Mutsumi, and it didn't take long before Taiyo started tweaking again. Shinzo and Nanao held him down, and Kyoichiro explained to them that his hyperactivity was caused by the semenine in his body, which could possibly make him go berserk. When Taiyo broke free from their grasp, Kyoichiro tied him up with some threads and put some headphones on his head. He explained that the voice of someone he loved was the way to calm Taiyo down, and then gave Mutsumi a microphone to sing. However, Mutsumi's voice was so disastrous that it chased all of the creatures in the area, but it somehow got Taiyo to come back to his senses. The next morning, Taiyo woke up and felt pain all over his body as he stretched, which made him remember the brutal battle he had against Yama. In the living room, Mutsumi prepared some breakfast, and Nana met up with her to inform her that he'd found a recipe for alleviating the exhaustion caused by Yozakura blood. Just then, Taiyo walked into the room and he tried to convince them that he was doing better, but his body suddenly got stunned with the pain of muscle cramps again. When Taiyo asked Mutsumi if she could leave the house, she replied that Kyoichiro and the others told her to stay home a little longer since there was danger lurking from all angles. After Nanao helped Taiyo get back to his feet, Mutsumi suggested he went to school with Taiyo for the day, and he replied that it was a great idea. Taiyo whispered his concerns to Mutsumi about the fact that Nanao looked like a Nickelodeon character, and then she pointed out that he was yet to see the real Nanao. Hearing this, Nato injected himself with a drug that transformed his body into a normal size, and he took off his helmet to reveal a face that looked very normal as well. On the way to school, Taiyo couldn't stop staring at Nanaonin, and Naoan explained to him that his immunity skill granted him a unique body that can neutralize poison and enhance itself physically. He also said that it was slightly hard to control, which was why he was keeping his body slightly mutated so that he could live a more stable day-to-day life. Naoan then revealed that he had a drug which he invented himself called Super Swelling Reducer, which could forcibly suppress the mutation whenever he needed to go to school. When they got to school, Nano left Taiyo to meet his friends, and Taiyo smiled while watching him have small talk with them. Back at the mansion, Shion and Kengo watched from the door while Mutsumi cooked up something that looked and smelled like toilet gravy, and they wondered if she planned to poison someone with it. Meanwhile, Taiyo was walking through the hallway with his friends when he got a call from Nanao, and when he picked up the call, he heard some weird sounds coming from the other end of the call. Nanao asked him to come to the biology lab, and when he got there, he saw Nanao lying on the floor, looking like one of Mahito's curses. He immediately rushed to check on Nanao, and Nano told him that he wasn't feeling well. Following his instructions, Tayo injected him with some medicine which transformed his body back to normal, and before Tayo could ask what happened, a female classmate of Nanao's named Rina suddenly dropped by. While Tayo jumped around in confusion, Rina checked on Nano, and Nano got super flustered as she got more up close with him during her checkup. Rin eventually realized that the poor virgin was boiling up due to embarrassment, so she advised him to visit the infirmary before leaving the room. After she left, Nanao explained to Tayo that Rinne was the president of the biology club, and she had zero interest in humans or mammals. When Tayo asked Nanao if he was okay, he said he was doing fine, but then he snacked on some meds that made his nerves suddenly spike up. Tayo rushed to check on him, and watched as he chanted a weird incantation that calmed himself down. Nanao explained to Tayo that the words he just chanted were the base sequence of his DNA, and the reason he was chanting it was because it made him feel like a normal human being. However, he said he'd reached the end of the line with his ruse, and when Tayo asked what he meant, he showed Tayo a permanent vaccine, which would cure the instability of his body permanently if he injected it, and also not allow him to return to his human body again. Nanao said it meant he wouldn't come to school again, but then claimed he'd be fine because he was only attending for fun. However, Tayo remembered how friendly he was with the people at school and closed the vaccine box before he could take it. With tears pouring from his eyes like a waterfall, Tayo apologized for not realizing the struggle Nanao had been enduring for a long time. Tayo then told him not to use the vaccine and promised him that he'd preserve his daily life. Afterwards, Nano continued his normal school life while Tayo snuck around him and shot a vaccine that transformed his body back to normal whenever it mutated. A while later, Rinsu went to the biology lab to have lunch, and her pet snake ate one of Nano's meds, which made it mutate into a terrifying monster. Meanwhile, Futaba and Rin were having a drink in front of the Yozakura mansion, and when Futaba told her about the recent attack, Rin promised to do some digging of her own. Shinzo showed up with some food which Mutsumi made, and he handed it to Sui and Oga, who were also chilling in front of the mansion. Back at school, Tayo injected Nano with some pins, which helped him relax, and they had a wholesome conversation until two animals from the biology lab showed up and informed them about what had happened. They rushed to the biology lab where they saw Rin unconscious, and Nano noticed that there was a weird scale on the ground which he realized was a product of his medicine. Nadao said the chaos was his fault because Rin's snake Basilisk ate one of his meds, which messed up its body. When Rinny woke up, she pointed out that Basilisk had a sad expression on his face as she ran out to look for him. Tayo held off the other lab animals, allowing Nano to run in pursuit of her, and eventually they arrived at the boiler room where Basilisk tried to ambush Rinne. Nanao saved Rina before it could harm her, and Rina tried to snap it back to reality using Talk no Jutsu, but failed miserably as it continued to chase them around. When the snake had them cornered, Nanao thanked Rina for everything, and then plunged a mutated version of his arm into the snake's mouth while explaining that his mutated cells could neutralize the effects of the medicine. Eventually, Basilisk returned to normal, and Rina was left stunned by what she'd just witnessed. Afterwards, Tayo took Nanao to the roof of the school where Nanao's body started losing control. When Nano brought out the vaccine, Tayo tried to talk him out of using it, but he pushed Tayo into the wall and spoke about how his school life was ending as he tried to inject himself with it. However, Tayo stopped him at the last second by sacrificing his hand, and he told Nano to chant the DNA sequence again. As Nano chanted it, his body returned to normal, and Tayo told him that he was a perfectly normal little brother while he cried in his arms. Just then, Rinne joined them by the roof and shocked them by saying she wasn't aware that Nano was capable of metamorphosis. She then forced Tayo into joining the biology club and told Namao that he shouldn't quit the biology club because she needed him. A few days later, Tayo tested out his awakened abilities against Shinzo during a sparring match, and after a bit of a struggle, Tayo slipped on a rock, allowing Shinzo to land the finishing strike. After the match, Shinzo gave Tayo a lecture about how he needed to improve his swordsmanship by focusing on his 5 senses, and gave him a description by disarming him using a barrage of sword attacks that he learnt from Bleach. Shinzo then pointed out that it was dangerous for Tayo to stay awakened for a long time, since he wasn't used to the Yozakura power, and he advised him to focus on stopping the enemy attacks rather than defeating them. Keiichiro interrupted the pep talk by telling Tayo that what made the Yozakura strong was what they wielded their powers for. He then informed them that he was assigned overseas for a mission, and as he walked away, Mutsumi showed up and ghosted him completely, before telling Tayo that she won a 2-day trip to the Endless Hell Hot Springs. She later explained to Tayo that the Endless Hell Hot Springs was a resort for members of the underworld, and Kyoichiro started throwing a tantrum over the fact that he'd missed the trip because of his mission. Futaba's efforts to shut him up violently didn't work, so Mutsumi consoled him by promising to go on the next trip with him. Afterwards, Kyoichiro threatened to skin Tayo alive if he bathed with Mutsumi, and then left for his mission. Some hours later, Tayo and the family had a chaotic road trip as they made their way to the resort, and they eventually got to a point where they drove off a cliff and landed in an ocean. Shion transformed their car into a special submarine and explained that the underworld resort wasn't something that could be accessed through normal means. After a few minutes of driving underwater, they arrived at the resort, and Tayo started panicking when he saw that it was filled with scary-looking thugs. Futaba calmed his nerves by informing him that it was illegal to start fights within the resort, and they were interrupted when a group of bozos picked a fight with them. The leader of the group tried to pull out his gun, and Tiao rushed to stop him. But before they could get close to each other, a girl who worked at the resort jumped in between them and reminded the bozo leader the rules of the place. Futaba greeted the lady in a familiar fashion and introduced Taiyo as Mutsumi's husband. In response, the woman introduced herself to Taiyo as Emma, the lady of the house, and then showed them to their rooms. In the boys' room, Shinzo and Kengo started fighting over chairs, and when Taiyo asked why they were doing so, Nanao explained that it was a family tradition for them. Afterwards, Nanao successfully gaslighted Shinzo into letting him have his chair, and Taiichi told them a sob story about his vacation trips with his late family, which made them all so emotional that they handed him the chair. In the girls' room, Futaba asked Mutsumi if she was going to tell Taiyo about a secret she had, and when Mutsumi expressed her desire to do so, Futaba assured her that Taiyo would accept it. Later that evening, the boys were hanging out in the sauna, and all of them were having a hard time apart from Shinzo. Nanao transformed into his monster body that was more heat-resistant, causing everyone to yell at him for being a cheater. Afterwards, they met up with the girls and did some fun activities together, including a shooting game which Shinzo cleared easily. Some hours later, the family were enjoying dinner together when the bozo boss from earlier interrupted them. Futaba successfully rage-baited him into trying to start a fight with her, but his partners held him back. The idiot boss accidentally spilled his beer on Futaba, causing everyone to lose their mind out of fear of how she was going to destroy him in return. But instead of fighting back, Futaba started goofing off. Shinzo explained that she couldn't stop laughing because she got drunk, and soon she started spinning the bozo boss around in the air, causing Shion to tell Taiyo to run away with Mutsumi while they handle her situation. Some minutes later, Mutsumi met Taiyo in a desperate room and thanked him for saving her. She then informed him that the room they were in had a private open-air bath, and Taiyo decided to have another soak in his room. As he walked away, Mutsumi stopped him and suggested they take a bath together instead. At the same time, Kyoichiro walked with Emma to the main hall where he got ticked off after seeing that Taiyo and Emma had run off somewhere together. When Mutsumi joined Taiyo in the bath, he tried to keep his virgin urges in check, and she told him he didn't need to bother because she used to have baths with her younger brothers all the time. Taiyo said it wasn't the same thing, and then expressed how satisfied he was by the fact that they were all having fun together as a family. Mutsumi then said she wanted to tell Taiyo something, and when she stood up from the pool, Taiyo lost his cool for a second before noticing a scar between her melons. He asked how she got the scar, causing her to reveal that Tanpopo once abducted her and tried to remove her heart. She revealed that her heart was capable of creating tens of thousands of enhanced humans at once, but it would also create that many victims as well. She explained that she applied the blood to his body when it was weak, because she knew it wouldn't have any major side effects, and revealed that it was her father who set things up to happen that way. When Taiyo asked why her dad did that, she said it was because he wanted Taiyo to be infused with Yozakura blood. Mutsumi then spoke about how she'd lost sight of what to do for the family, and Taiyo suggested they go see her father to question him directly. Their sweet time was interrupted when Shinzo's body came flying into the bath, and when Kyoichiro showed up, he launched an attack at Taiyo, which was deflected by Futaba. Futaba told Taiyo and Mutsumi to run away while she faced Kyoichiro. She eventually gave a signal that had everyone at the resort attack Kyoichiro at once with pillows, but he blocked all their attacks. However, Kengo fooled him by impersonating Mutsumi, allowing everyone to take him out with a combo attack. Some days later, Sui and Oga infiltrated one of the Tanpopo facilities, and when they got to a certain room, Sui informed Rin through a call that massive amounts of Hezakura had already been moved from the facility. He said they'd be withdrawing immediately after receiving a sample, but then Uka spotted a bomb in the room, which immediately exploded. Meanwhile, Makoto finished extracting some information from a computer, and he went outside to admire the smoke from the building which just exploded. Uka and Sui managed to survive the explosion, but it made them realize that most of the information they had about Tanpopo was outdated. Makoto met up in a forest with a white-haired lady who was admiring a flower, and he told her it was time for them to go meet someone important. Back at the Yozakura mansion, Mutsumi poured some tea for herself while remembering a tragic event from her past, and Goliath came to comfort her, so she picked him up and started petting him. Just then, Ayaka came into the room looking stressed out, and she informed Mutsumi that most of her information-gathering efforts with Shion so far had led to dead ends. However, they did find out that Tanpopo had been transporting Hazakura in great amounts on a regular basis. Since a lot of the information is fake, they weren't able to pinpoint the destination, but they figured out some of their routes, and the siblings split up to investigate each of them. After the report, Ayaka rested on Mutsumi's lap, and Mutsumi expressed concern over the fact that Taiyo was yet to return. At the same time, Makoto met up with Mutsumi's dad on a train, and as they dined together, Makoto informed the old man that Taiyo was on board. When a lady started ranting about the trashy food she was given, Taiyo, who was disguised as a waiter, brought a replacement for her. He spent the next couple of minutes doing strenuous tasks in service of the customers, and afterwards, he sat on top of the train and wondered why he hadn't seen any Tanpopo operatives. Ever since that hot spring trip, he'd been looking into Mutsumi's dad, Mamo, but he couldn't find any information on him because he was officially dead. However, he found out that the tourist train he was on was one of Tanpopo's smuggling routes. As he thought about this, he did the typical shonen main character pose, but his electro gun suddenly fell off the train. When he got back inside, he saw the white-haired lady from earlier sticking her head out the train window, and when he got her back inside, she handed him his gun, which she thought was a missing toy. She then introduced herself as Yuki and asked him to get her some wine. Afterwards, he met up with a passenger who complained about the fact that her windows wouldn't open, and he explained that it was a steam-powered train. He then remembered everything Susie'd seen on the train so far, and immediately rushed out as he realized that the train had been modified so that it wouldn't need a steam engine. After activating a scanning device on his phone, he realized that there was a high concentration of lethal poison in the area, and when he got to a train car that had a lot of people in it, he used a technique with his electro gun that destroyed all the windows in the area. Afterwards, the people in the car ran away, and his scanning app detected that the poison rate had massively depleted. He saw a man in glasses who told him that the gas being used was a hallucinatory gas called fog mask, and explained that inhaling it would make someone lose the ability to recognize anyone around them. When the fog mask cleared, Taiyo saw that it was Makoto talking to him with Momo seated across from him, and he remembered his first encounter with Momo. He pointed his electro gun at Momo's head while introducing himself as Mutsumi's husband. Meanwhile, Futaba returned to the mansion and met up with Taiyo and Mutsumi, who informed her that she'd spotted Makoto and Momo aboard a train, and when she asked if they'd contacted Taiyo, Mutsumi said they couldn't get a hold of him. Cheyenne said she'd let everyone know, but then Futaba got a call from Rin, who informed her that Taiyo was aboard the train as well. Back on the train, Yuki showed up to the car where Taiyo and the others were and stole Taiyo's attention, allowing Momo to grab hold of him and lecture him about the proper way to use his electro gun. Yay. Taiyo broke free from his hold and tried to blast the old geezer's brains out, but he was stopped by Yuki, who wrapped him up using her long hair. Yuki then knocked his gun out of his hand, and Makoto reintroduced her as Hakuja, a woman who was 100% compatible with Hazakura. Makoto then revealed that he released a bunch of fake information to divert the other Yozakuras elsewhere so that he could lure Taiyo to that train. As he left, Mamo told Taiyo that the blood of Mutsumi which ran inside him would show him the way, and then he joined Makoto in a separate car. Hakuja cut away the car they were in, allowing them to escape while she wrapped Taiyo up in her hair. Taiyo broke free from her hair and dodged several attacks which she threw at him, but before he could land one of his own attacks, Hakuja flung him into the wall. She then explained that her hair uses a synthesized component of Yozakura blood, called parasummoning, as a catalyst to move her hair strands at 100% efficiency, and claimed that he had no chance against her because he was inexperienced. When Taiyo pointed Yai at her, she told him about how she was once so sickly that she could barely walk until the Hazakura saved her and revealed that she would soon die a dreadful death. When Taiyo asked why she used the drug, she said it was because she strongly desired to live, and then told him that he had to stop her and the train, or else Tenpappo would eventually swallow everything, including Mutsumi. She then attacked him relentlessly again, but Taiyo dodged all of her hair strikes before setting up a superpowered blast. However, Hakuja blocked the blast using her hair and revealed that her hair blocks electricity. Taiyo then said he'd force it through and transformed Ya into an electro sword which he named Rain. Taiyo realized that if Tanpopo kept getting more powerful, they'd eventually get their hands of Mutsumi, so he decided to stop them there as he charged up his sword. Just then, Hakuja threw a special hair attack at him, but he sliced through it using a super fast sword technique, and he tried to stun her into unconsciousness, but she blocked him with another huge hair attack. She told him that her hair would keep growing no matter how much he sliced them, and then used a special attack which transformed her hair into a python. Taiyo blocked the attack, and as he struggled with her hair, he heard a secret message she sent to him using the hair where she revealed that his family's death was her fault. She revealed that over 10 years ago, her greatest wish was to live, and she started narrating the events that unfolded during that time. Back then, Taiyo's parents visited her on the hospital bed and gave her a pair of sun-shaped earrings as a birthday present, before revealing to her that she'd soon be discharged. Makoto joined them in the room shortly afterwards, and after Taiyo's parents left, he told Yuka that the earrings which they gave her made it seem like they were a real family. On the day Yuki was discharged, Taiyo's parents said some comforting words to her, and when she met up with Makoto at a later date, he showed her a pile of corpses which he said were people he injected with Hazakura. He claimed that the Hazakura complemented the effects of her illness, which made her the only one who survived with 100% compatibility. He then claimed that it wasn't an evil organization because they offered salvation to people like her, and when she asked about the Asanos, Makoto said he made sure they died as people who didn't know anything. As she cried, he explained that he eliminated those who were involved in the experiment so that no evidence would be left behind, and then welcomed her to Tanpopo before giving her the name Hakuja. Back in the present, Taiyo charged at Yuki and she showed him the earrings his parents gave her while revealing that they'd been fitted with a GPS to monitor her movements, implying that he could use them to track Tanpopo agents. When she started coughing up blood, she resigned herself to her fate, and she used a huge hair attack to launch Taiyo out of the train. In the air, Taiyo remembered how kind-hearted his family members were, and he also remembered how devastated he felt when he couldn't rescue them. He felt that he kept losing the people he cared about because he was weak, and as he pondered, Yuki joined him on the roof of the train and informed him that her comrades would soon receive the Hazakura order they were aiming for. Taiyo suddenly charged at her intensely, and Yuki managed to block. Makoto got hyped because he felt he was witnessing the true Yozakura power, but Momo told him Taiyo was just losing control of the Seminine due to his strong emotions. He then explained to Makoto that Summonine increased or decreased depending on the user's emotions, which made it powerful, but also more dangerous than Hazakura. He then predicted that Taiyo would soon die because his body couldn't handle that level of power yet, and Yuki soon had him tied up in her hair again. Taiyo then had a flashback of a time when he was being cared for by Mutsumi, and this gave him the motivation he needed to break free from her hold. Taiyo then slashed his own leg as a way of adjusting the excessive build of summoning in his system, and he swore to protect what he had with Mutsumi and the others before charging at her with electricity flowing through his entire body. Yuki tried to stop him with a special attack, but he destroyed her attack and finished her off with a special move he called Amaterasu. As Yuki fell to the ground, she remembered the time she spent with the Asanos and Taiyo caught her. He said his parents used to tell him about what a kind person she was, and told her that their death wasn't her fault, before thanking her for holding on to the keepsake they gave her. After Yuki passed on, Taiyo decided to stop the train, but a giant beast hand suddenly appeared behind him and slashed him. A girl named Ai, who was responsible for the attack, received some compliments by her comrade named Mizuki, and then Mizuki began the process of unaliving Taiyo by choking him out. However, they saw that Futaba and Rin were waiting in front, and Ai tried to face off against them, but Rin sent her flying back into Mizuki's arms in no time. Mizuki then used a special ability that morphed his head into a deformed mass, and then emitted a poison gas at them. In response, Rin sent Futaba flying towards them, and she easily dispersed the poison gas before ripping the train apart using a powerful jutsu. Afterwards, they retrieved Taiyo's body and flew back to the mansion together. Sometime later, Makoto was playing cards with Ai and chilling with the rest of the Tanpopo squad, when they were joined by some other members including Anuma and Akai. Anuma used his snow powers to play with A, while another member named Chacha used sign language to talk to Makoto. Makoto then announced that they'd be throwing a party, and Momo sat by the corner, looking at a card which had an icon of Mutsumi on it. Back at the Yozakura mansion, Rin informed the family that Tanpopo's hideout was on a place called Skeleton Island, which was about 30 kilometers from the mainland. She revealed that it was once a fishing village and it hosted a military base during World War I, but stated that it was currently deserted. She said she found this out after analyzing the data from Yuki's earring and revealed that they had a massive stockpile of Hazakura on Skeleton Island. Rin ended her briefing by announcing that they'd attack that hideout in a week's time, and Kyoichiro pointed out that it would be a joint mission between Yozakura and Hinagiku. Rin then asked Shion to join her team in their investigation into Tanpopo's plan, and she immediately agreed to that. Kyoichiro then gave the mission the code name Yozakura Frontlines, and said it would be an all-hands-on-deck operation, mobilizing both family and non-family. Some minutes later, Taiyo was in his room thinking about his fight with Yuki, and he realized that he wasn't as powerful as he needed to be. Just then, the goofy grandpa Ban appeared from his drawers, and Keiko arrived, just in time to scold him. When Taiyo asked why they were there, Ban said he busted out of prison again after hearing about the recent events, because he was worried about him. Ban then offered to train him, and they soon went to the training ground, where Ban told Taiyo about how Momo was the fastest learner he'd ever seen. Suddenly, some gunshots erupted from the ground around them, and Ban told Taiyo that using the power of summoning to enhance only his physical strength would make him a novice, because with proper training, he could learn how to control the speed and weight of a bullet fired at him. He said that Momo's bullets were faster and heavier than his own, and revealed that the only way to deal with them was to get used to them. Ban then fired a bullet at Taiyo, but Taiyo noticed that it only slightly bruised him, so the old man explained that he could dial down the force of the gun so that it's non-lethal. He then started blasting bullets at him repeatedly, and Taiyo tried to deflect them, but eventually he got taken out when one of the bullets hit him squarely in the face. As Taiyo yelled in pain, Ban said he'd keep shooting at Taiyo for a week and explained that if he could get used to summoning being awakened at all times without losing control, he'd learn how to pick up the trajectory of bullets on his own. Taiyo then got back up with a determined look on his face, and Ban brought out a huge collection of guns before promising to shoot 1,000,000 shots at him. Meanwhile, Rin was having a meeting with Kyoichiro and Seiji at the Hinagiku headquarters, and Rin accidentally ripped open the bandages on her hand to reveal a dandelion tattoo in her palm. Kyoichiro offered to help her remove the mark, using Kengo's synthetic skin, but she refused before swearing that she'd only get rid of it after she wipes out Tanpopo. She then revealed that the reason she founded Hinagiku was to make sure no one else ended up getting used for experiments by Tanpopo the way she was. At the same time, Nanao asked Sui and Oga about the dandelion marks on their body, so Sui revealed that they were former test subjects of Tanpopo, before explaining Rin's motivations for founding Hinagiku to him. Nana then said he was shocked that the blood samples he took from them were oddly similar to the Yozakura blood, and added that he might find a way to fix the damage the Hazakura inflicted on their bodies. Elsewhere, Futaba met up with Tsukio, who informed her that all the gold-ranked spies that worked with him were out on missions before offering to assist her for Taiyo's sake. Meanwhile, Taiyo just finished getting clapped by Ban, and when Mutsumi came to check on him, Ban brought up the fact that Taiyo was only half awakened, before making both of his eyes glow with Yozakura power. He explained to Taiyo that his current form was the fully awakened state of a Yozakura, which was called blooming. He explained that the Yozakura head could only transfer their power once in their lifetime, and revealed that he received his own from Keiko just like Taiyo did from Mutsumi. He added that the skills that manifest due to blooming differed from person to person, and stated that the summoning in his blood caused his blood and bones to become more fluid, allowing him to slip through small spaces that were physically impossible to penetrate. He then used this ability to slip into Taiyo's clothes and hold him from behind, before blasting a hole in the ground, which water started splashing out of. He explained that he used his powers to enhance his bullet so that it could penetrate up to 1,000 meters beneath the floor, and said he'd switch to this training method in order to help Taiyo activate his blooming. Just then, Ban started goofing off by showing him some dumb ballet dances, and he explained that the dances could trigger the blooming before, pointing out that Taiyo's second eye was already starting to bloom. Ban suddenly blasted him with a bullet, but Taiyo deflected it at the cost of his blade. Ban apologized for breaking Yai and offered to end their training for the day, but Taiyo refused to give up. However, Ban decided to show him a real risk by firing a bullet directly at Mutsumi, but Taiyo zoomed in and stopped the bullet with his bare hands. Seeing that Taiyo was now in full blooming mode, Ban explained that Taiyo's blooming ability was a ripoff of Kirishima from My Hero Academia as it hardened his body. The old fart yapped about Taiyo's abilities for several minutes, and he was interrupted when Taiyo pointed his blade at him while threatening to end him if he ever attacked Mutsumi again. Ban then apologized and stunned Taiyo by revealing that it was all staged since Mutsumi had a bulletproof covering on her the whole time. After the training, Keiko scolded Ban before inviting Mutsumi into a secret section of the mansion for a private conversation. The two of them walked through the secret passageway, and they got to a room where Keiko said was the head's chamber. They found a book on the table which Keiko said had the secrets of the Yozakura spy family's origins, and Keiko revealed that trying to pry it open by force would result in the mansion exploding to destroy its secrets. She asked Mutsumi if she was prepared to annihilate everything if she was no longer able to protect the secrets of the family, and Mutsumi assured her that she was prepared. Just then, Ban and Taiyo slipped into the room, and Taiyo hugged Mutsumi before promising to get stronger so that Mutsumi wouldn't lose everything. Sometime later, they had a cherry blossom viewing party, where everyone enjoyed Mutsumi's delicious meal while camping in a forest outside the mansion, and as they played around, Taiyo thought about how the joint invasion of Tanpopo would begin the next day. When Taiyo started at a cherry blossom tree that was in front of him, his blooming activated, and Keiko explained that the tree he was looking at was a sacred Yozakura family tree named Tenu. When she placed a flower petal on his hand, it glowed, and she said the reason it resonated so easily with him was because his control over his blooming was still weak. She revealed that the tree had existed since the first Yozakura family head, and added that it had a slight amount of summoning coursing through it, which made it capable of healing Yozakuras. This was why it was the Yozakura family tradition for them to gather there before important events. After her explanation, Keiko offered some special food to Taiyo, but before he could eat it, Ban rushed in to grab them, causing Taiyo to fall into Tsukiyo's arms. Tsukiyo then started pulling off Diddy moves as he offered Taiyo a meal he made for him, but Ayaka interrupted them by throwing a pin between them. Ayaka and Tsukiyo then had a standoff over who could simp for Taiyo the hardest, and things got even more out of hand when Sui, Ban, and Kyoichiro entered the mix. They all offered Taiyo some of their meal, and Taiyo was initially conflicted on which one to try, but he ended up stuffing all of them in his mouth before saying that they were all delicious. Meanwhile, Makoto was having his own little party with the Tanpopo squad, and he informed them that they were launching his master plan, which was named through Seed Sowing Project the next day. When one of them asked what they would do if the Yozakuras attacked, Makoto said it wouldn't be a problem since they couldn't make it to the desert island. Akai used her flame ability to heat up some of their roast turkey, and she ended up barbecuing Makoto's face by accident, causing Ai to dump a cake on him in an attempt to save him. Back at the Yozakura party, Taiyo was surprised when he saw a stage set up, so Ban explained that an idol performance during the party was also part of their family tradition. Just then, Shion took to the stage and started singing her favorite Beyoncé song, while Mutsumi and Keiko backed her up as guitarists. During the performance, Ayaka went all out on the drums while Goliath and Nanao did weird stage dances, and the goofy duo of Kyoichiro and Ban geeked out as much as they could from the crowd. Afterwards, Shinzo climbed on stage, wearing an outfit more bizarre than anything in JoJo, and he started singing some hard rock music which made Taiyo's eardrums explode. After his performance, the rest of them did some acts of their own, and they all had fun together until Mutsumi went on stage once again to announce that it was time for them to go over the details of their joint operation. She told them to look at the handbooks they'd been given, and as they did so, she revealed that the mission had 3 goals. The first was to retrieve every ounce of Hazakura in Tanpopo's possession and arrest Makoto. The second was to liberate all the test subjects, and the third was to unmask the truth about Momo, whose moves have been beyond anything they could predict so far. Mutsumi finished her speech by getting everyone hyped, and Kyoichiro suddenly pulled Taiyo away using his threads. He took Taiyo to a gravestone which belonged to his mother and said there was nothing inside of it. Kyoichiro said she was presumed to have vanished and stated that their recent encounters with powered-up villains have made him realize that Tanpopo had her body. He said they'd never have come that far without the body and heart of a Yozakura head, and then he presented Taiyo with a 4th mission for the both of them, which was to recover his mom's body without the other siblings catching on, so that he could lay her to rest at the mansion. Taiyo asked why he gave him such an important mission, and Kyoichiro replied that he wanted to shoulder that load as the eldest in the family, without traumatizing his siblings, before claiming that Taiyo was simply likely his insurance. He then told Taiyo not to tell Mutsumi about the plan, and they were interrupted when a drunk Futaba slapped Kyoichiro to the ground. Mutsumi also arrived and held Taiyo's hand while saying some romantic words to him. The next morning, Makoto was informed by one of his men that there were intruders on their island while Taiyo and the family hopped out of a helicopter to begin their mission. When Shinzo asked how their information got leaked, Momo said it was Yuki who sent him coded messages using her hair. Meanwhile, Shion explained how complicated the structure of the Tanpopo hideout was, and suddenly she got locked out of their system. Taiyo and the rest of the team charged at the hideout while riding on Goliath, and at the entrance they saw Akai waiting for them. Akai created a giant flame hand to stop them, and in response, Futaba leaped out of Goliath and used her manipulation to transform the hand into a flame tornado, which blasted Akai as well as the entrance. Taiyo and the gang rushed into the facility and easily took out some security guards that stood in their way. Shion told Kengo and Nanao to focus on rescuing the test subjects, while Kyoichiro, Shinzo, and Taiyo kept moving towards the nerve center. Outside the facility, Futaba was in the process of giving a report to some arriving agents when Akai suddenly charged up a massive flame blast beneath her. She and Goliath used a special move to avoid the blast, and afterwards, Futaba told Goliath to take care of the scrubs around them while she faced off against Akai. Makoto told Akai to take Futaba alive so that they could use her for research, and Akai agreed before telling him to shut up. Akai then fired a huge flame blast at Futaba using her legs, but Futaba used some stylish moves to deflect the flame blast, while lamenting about how Akai's flames felt like they were emitting a flammable liquid. Mizuki told Akai not to let her guard down because she was dealing with the eldest Yozakura daughter, and when Ai told her to be careful, she rudely told her to shut up, causing Ai to start crying. Makoto then called her a scumbag, and she apologized for making Ai cry. Afterwards, Makoto asked Chacha to call for reinforcements, but Chacha said it wouldn't be possible right away. Meanwhile, Keiko took down a bunch of security systems at the Tanpapo compound using a sniper rifle, while Ban sang praises to her. Makoto wondered what to do about the situation, so Aonuma offered to go handle the situation himself. When Ai came to convince Aonuma to stay, he assured her that he'd be fine. At the same time, Taiyo and the boys went in guns blazing as they took down even more security guards in the area, and they eventually got to a point where a pitch-black Tanpapo member named Kurosawa intercepted them. When Kurosawa tried to attack Taiyo, Taiyo blocked him off with his sword, and Shinzo shoved Taiyo out of the way before blasting Kurosawa repeatedly with his guns. As Kurosawa's body regenerated, Shinzo told them the rest of the team to move along while he faced off against him. After they left, Shinzo noticed that Kurosawa's body was made of steel, and since he knew his bullets couldn't pierce through, he switched his armory into laser mode. Outside the facility, Futaba told Akai to surrender since their only target was Makoto, but Akai replied that she had absolutely nothing to lose before entering her Super Saiyan form. Futaba smiled when she saw that Akai's eyes were glowing, and Akai fired a powerful high-speed flame attack at her. When Futaba tried to deflect it, the flame wrapped around her arm, and she had to throw away the piece of clothing on her arm. Akai then used another special attack which created some underground flames that converged towards Futaba, and Futaba countered by creating a wind barrier that deflected the flames. Seeing this, Akai praised her skills before taking things to the next level by activating her biggest flame attack yet. Elsewhere, Chacha informed Makoto that Akai's blooming had been activated, and Makoto said he didn't think she'd come this far before narrating how he met her. Some time ago, Akai's family got burned in a house fire, and Makoto managed to fix Akai up using the remains of her dead siblings. When Akai woke up, she destroyed the pyromaniac that unalived her family and officially joined Makoto's army. Back in the present, Futaba survived her massive flame attack, so Akai threatened to fire even more devastating attacks that would eventually end her if she didn't unalive her. However, Futaba said she wasn't planning on unaliving her or dying and claimed that she intended to embrace the hostility inside Akai as her blooming activated. Akai remembered a time when Makoto advised her not to engage if she encountered a real Yozakura in blooming mode, but she was determined to test her out, so she fired another flame attack at her. Futaba reduced the flame attack to nothing and explained that her blooming ability was called magnanimity, which enhanced her kinetic vision to the maximum, granting her accurate, sensitive fingertips which could neutralize any attack they come in contact with. Akai fired a barrage of flames at her, and as Futaba started neutralizing them, Makoto told her to retreat because boosting her powers any further would make her burn to death. However, Akai claimed that she didn't care about that, and she cracked up the heat even further while claiming that she wanted to destroy everyone that annoys her. When Makoto noticed that she was beyond the critical temperature, he told Chacha to activate their fireproof wall, and Akai ended up creating a massive explosion in that area. When the smoke cleared, Akai was stunned to see Futaba holding her arms, and Futaba then said she couldn't see her as someone she didn't care about before using a special wind move to deactivate the flames on her body. Afterwards, Futaba held on to Akai and said some words of motivation to her before informing her team that she'd subdued the enemy. She also told them to watch their backs since she detected a power similar to blooming. Meanwhile, Chacha informed Makoto that Taiyo and the others would soon run into Aonuma, and Makoto said it didn't matter if their facility was destroyed because it wouldn't ruin his seed sowing project. subject. Following Shion's instructions, Kengo and Nano followed a different route to rescue the test subjects, and Nano took out several guards in the area before Anuma appeared before them. Kengo then created a bunch of shadow clones of himself and started attacking, but Anuma destroyed a bunch of them before informing Makoto that the research wing was in danger. He told Aonuma to secure the power source, so he disappeared from the battlefield using his ice powers, and Ai tried to debate Makoto's plan of destroying the test subjects, but Mizuki intimidated her into shutting her mouth. Makoto also told Kurosawa to head to the research wing, so he left Shinzo and ran towards that location while destroying his own allies in the process. However, Shinzo chased after him and started attacking him using a special weapon he created before preaching to him about how he was using weapons wrongly. Suddenly a giant wall appeared in between them, and Shion told Shinzo that she was the one who separated them remotely. When Kurosawa started drilling through the wall, Shion told him to rejoin Taiyo and Kyoichiro, while she dealt with Kurosawa. However, Shinzo refused and said he'd activate his blooming if the need arises because he was determined to stop Kurosawa no matter what. Ayaka suddenly became Shinzo's personal cheerleader, and she revealed to Shion and the others that he'd created a weapon that was far beyond anything Tony Stark ever made, which was called turmeric. Using the weapon, Shinzo pummeled Kurosawa, and as Kurosawa kept regenerating, he transformed the weapon into different forms in order to attack again. Eventually, Kurosawa pulled off a domain expansion by covering the area with his steel body, but when he launched steel spikes at Shinzo from all angles, Shinzo blocked it by transforming turmeric into a shield. Kurosawa kept attacking relentlessly, causing his shield to slowly crack, and Shinzo remembered some kind words how Mom told him, which gave him the motivation he needed to destroy the steel in the area before going into blooming mode. Shinzo suddenly zoomed in front of Kurosawa and attacked using the full force of turmeric. Kurosawa tanked his attack and flung him to the wall, but he realized that his dismembered parts refused to regenerate, and Shinzo explained that it was because he destroyed the cells within them, rendering them as nothing more than useless bits of metal. Shinzo then called himself a coward, who was scared of losing his loved ones, and revealed that the reason he was obsessed with weapons was because of how scary they were. He revealed that his blooming was named Destruction, and then he transformed turmeric into a ring of different terrifying weapons. When Kurosawa charged at him again, he unleashed a barrage of attacks using his weapons in a way that made him look like Dr. Octopus from the Spider-Man movies, and Kurosawa clashed with him fiercely, but eventually got pushed back. Kurosawa then regrew his severed arm and slashed Shinzo in the head, but this only helped Shinzo release the blood that was running wild within him, allowing him to transform turmeric into a large sword which he used in charging at him. Shinzo then shattered Kurosawa's body into a million pieces and thanked him for the head slash from earlier because it allowed him not to go berserk and unalive him. Afterwards, Shinzo informed the home team that he'd secured the route, and Ayaka was very pleased to hear this. Just then, some guards started charging at Shinzo, but before he could react, Makoto pushed a button which made them as well as all the other guards within the building to self-destruct. Chacha asked Makoto if it was necessary to lose their valuable samples because of intruders, and Makoto said it didn't matter, because as long as that seed-sowing project succeeded, they wouldn't need anything else. Nahano informed Shion that the guards had exploded, and Shion announced to the whole group that Makoto didn't care about the hideout or the test subjects, adding that he was planning to bring himself down with them all for the sake of his scheme. She also revealed that there were more than 2,000 tons of concentrated Hazakura in the deepest part of the facility, which was more than enough for 10 billion people, and the entire storage vault was covered with explosives. The instant the Hazakura synthesized at the upper level, the whole building would blow up and massive amounts of Hazakura would be released into the ocean. Eventually, it would seep into that main coastal nations, and people who aren't compatible would be instantly destroyed, while the half-compatible ones would go berserk, turning the world into an apocalyptic nightmare. Shion then announced to everyone that stopping the seed-sowing project was now their top priority, and informed them that they had an estimated 30 minutes left until the explosion. Keiko said she'd blast away the escape hatch, and Shion decided to hack into the detonation system again, by having her brainwaves reflected in the analysis via electrodes. When she tried to hack it, she was spammed with error messages, and she wondered if the noise she was hearing was a result of reverse hacking. Apparently, it was Chacha interfering with her brainwaves, and he told her that she'd shut down all the power sources within the facility in order to stop her. Just then, Kengo provided an assist to Shion by turning one of the power supplies back on, and when Onuma stabbed him with an icicle, he exploded the same way the shadow clones do. Some other shadow clones ran into the area, and Kengo told Shion to handle the hacking while he faced off against Aonomu. Shion tried to argue, but Kengo convinced her to rely on him as a sibling while turning on several more power switches. Onuma popped some more shadow clones like balloons, and he was concerned that the power would soon be restored thanks to Kengo's efforts, so he asked Chacha if he should turn the power back off before facing Kengo. Chacha said he didn't need to panic because there was only 21 minutes left until their plan succeeded, implying that he only needed to hold them off. At the same time, Taiyo was struggling with some guards in another part of the facility, and Kyoichiro easily finished all of them off with a single attack while lecturing him about the best way to aura farm. Following Shion's direction, Kengo turned on some more power sources and ran ahead before some of his clones got taken out by Anuma's ice attacks. Anuma entered into blooming mode, and Chacha told him exactly where to find the Kengo clones, so he sent an ice wave to their location. Chacha started yapping about how Makoto found him in the past and gave him the blooming power which he was now using to see all of them at once, and Shion cut him him off by saying he was similar to her because he was a shut-in, who looked down on people because of his intelligence. While Kengo's clones got frozen by Aonuma's ice attacks, Shion told Chacha that he was nothing but a narrow-minded fool, and when Aonuma tried to make a move, a shadow clone of Kengo exploded while holding on to him, allowing another clone to turn a power switch back on. Just then, Chacha's system got flooded with random images of Aonuma, and Aonuma started hearing multiple voices of Chacha giving him different commands at the same time. Shion explained that it was all part of a plan which she and Kengo executed during the blackout, and the clones succeeded in turning on the remaining power sources, giving Shion full control of the building as Kengo went into blooming mode. Kengo revealed to Aonuma that his ability allowed him to transform into people, and he displayed this by transforming his eyes into Aonuma's eyes. He then called out all of Aonuma's personal information, and Aonuma felt that he googled him until Kengo brought up the fact that his jacket was a keepsake of his grandmother Hako. He then narrated how Aonuma's parents abandoned him, leaving him in the care of his grandma who lived in poverty with him until the day she passed on. Before he could continue the story, Aonuma angrily tackled him to the ground while yelling at him to shut up, but Kengo calmed him down by reminding him about how his grandma used to warm him up. Aonuma then dispelled the ice that was covering him, and told Chacha that he couldn't fight anymore. Just then, Chacha noticed that he was being watched, and Shion revealed that her blooming power, which was named Analyzation, allowed her to gain full control of the facility's system, like a supercomputer. And then she blew up the room where Chacha was operating from. Afterwards, Shion informed Taiyo and Koichiro that she'd gained control of the defense system and was now relaunching their mission. Meanwhile, Koichiro and Taiyo arrived at the gate to the deepest part of the hideout, and he told Shion that they were prioritizing capturing Makoto. Koichiro and Taiyo used a combo attack to destroy the gate, and on the other side they saw Makoto, who thanked Taiyo for looking after Hakuja. Koichiro told Taiyo not to take the bait because any damage inflicted on Makoto would cause the entire facility to explode, and Makoto said he didn't care if he died so long as the seed-sowing project worked out. He revealed that he'd set up another deterrent in case he failed and showed them a real-time video of Nano, which made Taiyo worry for him. Meanwhile, Nano led the test subjects out of the lab, and then he was ambushed by Ai before Mizuki arrived at the scene. Mizuki flexed his horrific appearance while trolling Nanao that his mission would end up in failure, and Nanao noticed that he was emitting sleeping gas all over the area. Mizuki revealed that he'd flooded the passageway with sleeping gas, and the test subjects who escaped were now laying unconscious waiting to be captured again. He praised Nanao for being able to neutralize his poison gas but claimed that it was futile, and just then Ai punched him in the stomach before asking him to return her friends. When Mizuki asked Nano what he'd do to stop them, Nano brought up the fact that they were also test subjects and extended an olive branch to them by offering to help them regain their body using his research. He also promised to help them reintegrate into society, and Ai started to fold, but then Mizuki revealed that they already had a way to remove the Hazakura from their body. He claimed that they wouldn't die if the base exploded and said they had no society to return to. Mizuki then revealed that his family was murdered by society during a contamination case over a decade ago, which caused the unnatural deaths of several company directors. When Mizuki's company tried to sue the powerful people who caused it, they lost the case and got slammed by the press as a special interest group playing the victim card to cash in. Mizuki claimed that society rejected him, causing him to accept his fate of being doomed to die due to the infection, and eventually it was Makoto who saved him by bringing him into Tanpopo. Mizuki then started using his mutated arm to torture Nano and Makoto, saw that Taiyo was concerned for Nano, so he told him to attack him so that they'd all die together and end it all. Taiyo regained his composure and told Makoto that he wasn't the only one they were fighting against. Just then, Sui and Oga arrived at the lab room and destroyed Mizuki's mutated arm. Seiji also joined the battle, along with Rin, Tsukio, and the other agencies the Yozakuras were aligned with, and Taiyo boldly told Makoto that he was facing all of them. Back in the lab room, Ai broke free from Oga's chains and started attacking the Hinaguku duo while tearfully telling them not to take her home away. Nanao then pointed out that Ai had wolf DNA implanted into her with Hazakura's power, making her a chimera, and then he got a call from Taiyo, who asked if he was okay. Nanao said he was fine because he could now focus on his blooming, and then he told Taiyo that he'd end things right away. Nana then went into blooming mode, which made several glowing orbs appear around Mizuki, and Mizuki noticed that his Hazakura concentration level was dropping. Nakano explained that his blooming ability named Adaptation created the crystallized cells floating around them, which were made of summoning and immunity substances. He said his body could counteract any poison or environment it came into contact with, and then he preached about how Makoto robbed all of the test subjects of their freedom. He ended his speech by saying Makoto's facility shouldn't exist anymore, because it robbed people of their ability to adapt, and then he used his detoxification power to undo Mizuki's transformation. Afterwards, Nahano went to check on Ai, who suddenly collapsed during her fight with the Hinagiku duo, and they noticed that she was on the verge of dying because she couldn't withstand the Hazakura's hyperactive shock. Nanao then went into blooming mode again as he tried to save her, but he noticed that it wasn't working, and Mizuki explained that it wouldn't work because the summoning was overpowering her body. He then offered to save her by pumping all of his parasummoning into her, and as he did so, Namino reminded him that his current body relied on Hazakura. Mizuki told them that Ai looked like his dead daughter, and narrated his experiences with Ai as his body crumbled away. Ai suddenly woke up, and got teary-eyed as she begged Mizuki not to die, but eventually he turned into dust, leaving her emotionally destroyed. Meanwhile, Makoto called Mizuki a fool for sacrificing himself for Ai, and just then, Shion informed Taiyo that she'd severed the link between the detonation system and Makoto himself, meaning Taiyo could knock his head off if he wanted to. Taiyo immediately transformed Yae into a huge gun, which he used in blasting Makoto with a powerful lightning attack. But Makoto somehow tanked this attack. Makoto tried to activate something through his phone, but Kyoichiro sliced off his arm before he could do so, and severed his head immediately afterwards. Taiyo watched in shock as Makoto's body slowly reattached itself, and Kyoichiro explained that Makoto was a monster who had been lurking in the shadows of history for the last 100 years. Makoto suddenly activated his blooming, and Taiyo was shocked to see that the pattern on his eyes looked like a legit Yozakura. Makoto then narrated how he was given a mission to study the Yozakura family immediately after World War II, and all of his research ended up getting covered up after the war. After a few more minutes of yapping about his goals, Makoto threw a finger of his on the floor, which morphed into a giant monster, and he explained that his blooming named regeneration allowed him to store the DNA of his subjects and regenerate them as backups. He then left them to take on the monster while he headed out to activate the detonator manually, and the attack which Kyoichiro fired the monster with didn't even piece its skin. Kyoichiro then wrapped his strings around Taiyo, while Taiyo charged at the monster and destroyed it using a supercharged blooming attack with his sword. As Taiyo ran forward, he told Shifa that he was about to breach through the deepest room in the facility, and in response, she informed him that she was going to disable the detonation system within the next 5 minutes. She then told him to smash the tanks inside the room after 5 minutes, so Taiyo set his stopwatch to a 5-minute countdown. Inside the deep room, Makoto was about to hit the detonator switch when Taiyo arrived and tackled him to the floor. Taiyo was in full blooming mode, and he told Makoto to give up, but Makoto stabbed him in the gut using spikes from his body and informed him that he'd pierced his vitals with poisonous blades. Makoto also revealed that massive blood loss would blunt his Yozakura powers, but Taiyo cut him off by saying that Shion would be shutting down the detonation system any second now, adding that his mission was to hold him off. All of a sudden, the blooming eyes of Taiyo and Makoto started reacting with each other, and Taiyo soon found himself in a strange flower garden. In a lab somewhere, a younger version of Makoto was going over his research, and he was surprised to see that a dandelion he planted in a cup was still alive despite the lack of sunlight. He felt that the power of the dandelion could have changed the outcome of the war if they harnessed it, and he knew the lab he was in would soon be erased to protect some dirty politicians. His only regret was that he couldn't reproduce any results from his research, because the sample blood he had was too potent. He told his test subject to let him examine her one last time before he gets erased and she gets incarcerated, but she replied that wouldn't be that last time because they could still come up with a strategy to survive. As he extracted her blood, she spoke about how she'd love to be reborn as something other than a Yozakura, so that she'd no longer be worshipped and trifled with. She stated that she wanted to be something normal, like a dandelion, and asked him if his seed sowing project would make that possible. Makoto replied that it was only a fantasy, but she said it was lovely because obliterating the existence of the Yozakuras would free her from being the first head of the family, so she could just be Tsubomi. She then claimed that she'd make it happen even if she had to sacrifice all of her descendants. After seeing that memory, Taiyo regained his consciousness and Makoto pinned him to the ground before injecting him with Mizuki's poison. Taiyo asked what happened between them, so he explained that their blooming spun out of control, and then revealed that Tsubomi's dream would become a reality if they could find one more strong Yozakura body. Makoto claimed that stopping the seed-sowing project wouldn't end anything, and Taiyo interrupted his villain speech by slashing his limbs apart. Taiyo then gave a speech of his own which ended in him saying that he'd stop Makoto no matter what. Just then, Taiyo's body mutated, and Makoto explained that it was because the old Yozakura blood which he injected into him mixed up with the new Yozakura blood in order to create a deadly poison that could destroy him. He mumbled some science nonsense for a bit before telling Taiyo that they were the same and making their blooming eyes connect again. He showed him tons of people who had lost their lives thanks to the Yozakuras, and the pain made Taiyo scream as he continued to gaslight him. Eventually, Taiyo lost his consciousness, and he returned to Makoto's memories, where Makoto was shot by a soldier who intended to take Tsubomi to custody. Before the soldiers could leave with Tsubomi, Makoto blew up the lab, and afterwards Tsubomi asked him why he freed her at the cost of his own life. He told her he grew up on that island where everyone was wiped out by the Spanish flu, and he became a doctor who had to dispose of many people. He claimed that Tsubomi was different from other humans because she was a mutation, which meant that she'd be an important part of the future. She then said that she wanted him to come with her, and she injected him with Yozakura blood before telling him to show her the future he intended to create. Back in the present, Taiyo laid on the ground helplessly while Makoto Ora farmed, and he thought about everything he'd been through so far, which made his ring start glowing. On the helicopter, Mutsumi's ring glowed as well, so she prayed for Taiyo to succeed. When Makoto moved in to make the final blow on Taiyo, the red-haired virgin got energized by his ring, enabling him to stop the attack in midair. Taiyo realized that Mutsumi was helping him survive like she'd always done, and he felt grateful to her for it. When Makoto attacked him again with his tentacles, Taiyo destroyed the mass that was weighing him down before landing a powerful thunder-breathing technique that destroyed all the containers of Hazakura in the facility at once. Afterwards, Makoto pinned him to the wall and revealed that he'd absorbed all the Hazakura before it was deactivated. He claimed the seed-sowing project would be a success if he detonated himself using blooming, and Taiyo moved in to stop him, only to get overpowered again. Just then, the Yozakura siblings broke into the room, and Shion told them to destroy the part of his body that was storing the Hazakura before it explodes in order to to foil his plans. When Makoto attacked again, the siblings used their abilities one by one to stop his attacks before Futaba and Koichiro fired a powerful combo attack at him. However, he deflected the combo attack, and when Taiyo noticed something glowing from Makoto's neck, he alerted Koichiro, causing him to switch their formation to have Taiyo be the one leading the next attack. Just then, Shion informed Koichiro that Makoto was going to blow up the building very soon, but he assured her that it wouldn't happen because they'd finish him off with their next move. When he told them that Taiyo would be at the forefront of this attack, everyone was baffled, but they decided to go along with it anyway. Futaba launched Taiyo towards Makoto using her wind powers, and Makoto tried to counter, but Koichiro wrapped Taiyo up in his threads, allowing him to rip through Makoto's overgrown arm with ease. Kengo then made multiple clones of Taiyo to appear in the area and explode on Makoto's body. Afterwards, Shinzo smashed through the ground, creating a pile of rocks which Futaba hurled repeatedly at Makoto using her wind manipulation. And Makoto tanked their attack until, without realizing that Taiyo had drilled through the ground beneath them in order to reach the room where Koichiro's mother was being stored. When Taiyo got there, he saw some shining threads that brought immense pain to his body when he touched them. Makoto revealed that the threads crystallized seminine, which were woven by Yozakura blood, and then he explained that the Yozakura blood, which never decomposed even after death, were too strong for humankind, but they could be used as the foundation for spreading Hazakura. He also revealed that he had his body linked to the body of Mutsumi's mother, meaning that if the threads were severed, it would stop his supply of Hazakura and destroy him. He claimed that it was impossible for humans to destroy that crystallized structure, and even if by chance a thread were to be slashed, it would create a huge explosion that would destroy them. Just then, Taiyo grabbed the threads and claimed that he would surpass his limits for Mutsumi as he ripped them apart. The threads caused an explosion, but this didn't harm Taiyo at all, thanks to his hardening ability, and he carried the body of Mutsume's mother. Shion informed them that Makoto's Hazakura levels were going down, and Makoto's body started melting, so he tried to complete his plan by detonating his body. However, Futaba stopped his suicide bombing attempt using a special move that sealed the energy from the explosion, allowing Nano to crystallize the Hazakura within his body so that he wouldn't be able to blow it up anymore. Kengo then synchronized his blooming with Makoto's in order to bring down his seminine to 10%, and this created an opening for Shinzo to wrap him up in his weapon. Koichiro then sent countless microscopic threads through Makoto's body, and Taiyo finished him off with a powerful lightning move out of Thor's playbook, which destroyed his cells one by one. While being Pikachu'd, Makoto heard the voice of Tsubomi, who thanked him before saying her final farewell to him. Afterwards, Koichiro announced to everyone that they'd captured Makoto, and Rin responded that they succeeded in rescuing the test subjects as well. Seiji reported that his team had subdued what was left of Makoto's guards, and Mutsumi tearfully thanked Taiyo before declaring that their mission was a complete success. Some minutes later, Koichiro met Taiyo in the room where his mother was being held, and after silently thanking Taiyo, Koichiro carried his mom away. At the same time, Ban met up with Momo by a beach and told him to hand over his daughter's heart, which he had contained in a box he was holding. Momo said he wouldn't do so because it belonged to his wife Rei and himself. However, Ban went into blooming mode and pointed a gun at his scumbag son-in-law's face. He then fired a super powerful shot which Momo stopped with his bare hands, causing a massive shockwave which shook the area all the way to the island. Momo said Ban's shot was impressive because his blooming ability named Winter Daphne couldn't absorb it all, and then he transformed into cherry blossoms that floated away. The next day, Mutsumi wrote a report which stated that Makoto had been arrested while the surviving members of his team were put under intense supervision, and afterwards, she met Taiyo by her mother's grave. Taiyo brought up the fact that they weren't able to find out anything about Momo, and he promised her that he'd finish that mission one day. Some days later, Taiyo woke up to the shocking sight of Mutsumi in a wedding dress, and Kengo took off Taiyo's sleep clothes to reveal the tuxedo he was wearing underneath. Taiyo was baffled, so Futaba told him they were doing a Yozakura-style wedding reception for him and Mutsumi. At the reception, Mutsumi told Taiyo about all the underworld people who were in the crowd, and they were soon approached by the oldest active spy named Fuma, who gave Taiyo some roses. When a blade erupted from the roses, Taiyo dodged and Fuma took off his disguise to reveal that he was actually Ban. Koichiro showed up wearing a weird fish suit, and he started bullying Taiyo as usual, before Mutsumi's mom suddenly appeared on a screen and told him to stop. They realized that it was a pre-recorded video which Rei left for Mutsumi to watch on her wedding day, and the heartwarming words Rei left for Mutsumi left her in tears. Rei also left a message for Mutsumi's husband, thanking him for choosing her before saying she was counting on him to look after her daughter. Hearing this, Taiyo grabbed Mutsumi's arm and swore to do his best. Afterwards, Mutsumi gave a speech where she thanked the guests for attending the wedding and promised to do everything to protect the Yozakura family, before telling the guests to send them off with a barrage of bullets in compliance with the Yozakura wedding traditions. As Taiyo and Mutsumi ran down the aisle, the guests blasted them with bullets, and the other members of the family used their powers to protect them. If you were Taiyo, which bedroom position would you put Mutsumi in first? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.